Ladies and gentlemen, it is another action-packed Tuesday night here on Sportswire Radio. And of course, here we are live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, also Linda and Mac McGrath's Northeast Streaming Sports Channel on Roku, and of course our flagship on sportnarium.com/player. We are heard worldwide radio for those who are listening on that. Thank you for listening, and I'm always excited to have on a guest, and we were speaking with her just a few minutes ago. I think she holds the record for Sportswire radio appearances. I've been doing this a long time, so there's been a lot of important people that have come on here over the years, but she is definitely one of the important ones. We definitely hold her in very high regards. She is definitely our Renee Paquette. She's our Lillian Garcia. She's our Sarah Schreiber. She's all that and some, and better than all of them. She is doing a phenomenal job, obviously, covering all the latest happenings in the world of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, KOW. She was president of the Lancaster University Pro Wrestling Society, and she's going to do even bigger and better things, no doubt, in 2022. And without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show writer and reporter for KOW and Odyssey Pro Wrestling, Lucy Simons. Lucy, how are you?
Thank you so much, Tom, for that awesome introduction. It gets better every single time. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I'm actually getting, I guess, good at these to the point that the unforgettable Andre Decker on Thursday's show actually said it was good. He actually said that it was pretty good. So if Andre Decker liked it, yeah, that means that you must be doing something right. But obviously, we'll get into Andre Decker because he is going to be a huge part of what we speak about undoubtedly here. But there's some breaking news, Lucy, that we have to touch upon here because it was just announced literally right before we were going to go on the air. So clearly KOW knows that Sportswire Radio is going to be covering KOW here throughout our segment. And we have some breaking news here for Redemption coming up here May the 14th next month, of course, at Cloud9 in the Lounge. And we are going to see, I don't know if you call it a brother versus brother match. I don't know if you call it a grudge match. I don't know what you call it at this point. But we are going to see, of course, two very dear friends that are going to be in action. That is, of course, the natural-born fighter, R.P. Davis, no stranger to the show. We just heard from him a few days ago. And, of course, our very dear friend, of course, a legend in KOW, the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus and Lucy. I mean, this is going to be one of the most explosive, one of the biggest matches in KOW history. We have some other matches that are certainly going to hold candle to that for sure, to say the least. But set the tables for everybody watching and listening to this on what we can expect. May 14th, Redemption at Cloud9 The Lounge. It's going to be the natural-born fighter, R.P. Davis, versus the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said about this match. It's a clash of two men who are really popular in their own right in wrestling. And obviously we all know that RPD used to be a boxer too, so he's got that going for him as well. RPD only made his debut in KOW at the last show against Brian Adenson, where he was successful, but Rick Marcus decided to make his return after that match, and he was really angry because he said that RPD didn't deserve a match at KOW, but Rick Marcus did, but he wasn't given a match, so he was really annoyed, and he said, I'm the most successful wrestler in KOW, why am I not on the card? And that's when the general manager, Sheriff Steele, decided to come out, and he said, you know, Rick, if you want a match tonight, I can put you in a match. And Rick was like, wait, no, I'm not ready. So Steele was like, well, you don't have the same fire in you that I saw in you in the past in KOW. As you said, he's a big KOW legend, but Sheriff Steele said, you haven't done anything of note in 4 years. You don't have the fire in your eyes anymore. And I think that really hit a nerve with Rick Marcus. And he said that at Redemption on May 14th, he could go one-on-one with RPD to prove himself. And Marcus was up for it, and he shook hands with RPD, but RPD had the last word, and he said, you may be the best competitor in KOW, but I'm here now. So the fighting words from RPD. I think he's obviously going to be confident coming off his victory, but Rick Marcus has got all the history going for him in KOW, and we all know how brutal and vicious Rick Marcus can be, that he's proven himself to be, and he can be very successful. And I think everyone's wanted these two to clash for so long. We know they're friends outside of the ring, but in wrestling, friendship doesn't really mean anything. I'm looking forward to seeing what is going to happen between these two. I mean, in terms of picking a winner, I don't think I possibly could.
I wasn't even thinking that far ahead yet, Lucy, because obviously, I mean, this is what you call literally a coin toss. This is literally a rocket launcher, to say the least, in terms of a match here between Rick Marcus and RPD. I mean, I don't even know if the ring is going to be in place after a kind of match like this. And listen, Rick Marcus has been in some legendary feuds. Obviously, Sheriff Steele comes to mind for sure, and so many others in KOW history. Obviously, him being a showcase champion, a world champion. I mean, he's pretty much done it all in KOW. We've spoken with the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus, about this. But RPD, I mean, we've had RPD on. He's been on almost just about as much as you at this point. But, I mean, RPD, everywhere I go, it's the natural born fighter, RP Davis. I mean, something tells me that this could be, when I think of KOW, the year of the natural born fighter, RP Davis. But Rick Marcus is no pushover. And I kind of think in some ways, Lucy, the Cumbrian Outlaw, to the point that Sheriff Steele made, does have a lot to prove here. And this is why it makes this such an intriguing match here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously RPD wants to make that impact in this new company. I mean, he is fairly new to wrestling. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's really 2 years. He only has 2
yeah,
years of real in-ring experience.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's had obviously a lot of matches in the northwest of the British indie scene, but yeah, as you say, it's only been 2 years. Whereas I don't know. I couldn't say how long Rick Mack has been in the ring. I don't actually know the figure for that, but it's longer than 2 years.
It's
So
pretty much close to 10. I mean, that's what I'm going to
yeah,
tell you straight up.
yeah,
It's
that's
about
what I
close
thought.
to 10.
Yeah, so I think RPD's, yeah, like you say, he's got a lot to prove because people like to criticize him and say, you're a boxer, you're not a wrestler. It's different, and you can't match up to it. But actually, I think he has proven in Odyssey that he can match up to it, but it's just whether he can kick it up a notch to defeat someone as vicious as Rick Marcus, especially when they're friends outside of the ring.
That makes it so intriguing here because they have a real friendship. They have a relationship. We've spoke about this with them. We've even had them on in a segment together. I mean, when I
Mhm.
think of pro wrestling, these guys really are brothers. I mean, this is not fake. These guys legitimately, even during the pandemic, found ways to be with each other and train. I mean,
Mm,
there's a real relationship here.
very
This
true.
is why what makes it interesting. I mean, I almost have to throw it out there, Lucy. I mean, their relationship very well could change after this match, depending on the outcome, depending what happens here. I mean, we see this all the time in wrestling. I mean, they're brothers one moment, and then they have a match with each other, and something goes wrong, and all of a sudden, the relationship isn't the same anymore. I mean, Hogan and Macho Man comes to mind. I mean, there's a long list of them. I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They've said many times that they've got respect for each other, but once you a wrestler always wants to win. It doesn't matter who they're facing. Obviously, that's the nature of wrestling. You want to win, even if that means beating up your best mate. And I think both of these men are too kind of proud to let that get in the way. And I think Rick Marcus especially has this kind of mean streak within him. So I'm interested to see what he's going to pull out of the bag to defeat RPD. I think Rick Marcus has already shown that he's bitter about RPD being in KOW. So I
Can
think
you blame him though? Can you
mm,
blame him? Because this was Rick Marcus's company here. I mean, when I think of
mm,
KOW, when I think of the all-time greats in KOW, obviously Sheriff Steele is in that discussion, but I think right
mm.
behind him is literally the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus and somebody else who we'll get to in a little while who will be facing off in for the championship that he had held for quite a while. And War Machine Craig Collins. But when I think of KOW's Mount Rushmore, I mean, Rick Marcus is on that list. I mean, can't blame him to that standpoint.
Yeah, no, I do. I see what you mean, but I think on the other hand, you would perhaps think he would be happy for his friend coming in to his promotion, like more competition. Should he be happy for him? But I mean, I totally get your point. I mean, it must be hard feeling as if obviously his whole feud with Sherry Steele went down, and then the pandemic happened, and since then Rick Marcus hasn't had the chance to do more in KOW. So I guess I can certainly understand why he would feel that it was him who deserved to be in the match rather than Brian Anderson. I mean, rather than RPD against Brian Anderson, for example, or even the other way around. It was two newcomers in this in the card, in the spot in the card, that I think I can understand why Rick Marcus feels that way, but that's in his nature, to be competitive and to want more. So yeah,
tough one. No, there's no question here. There's a lot of intrigue here, and I mean, this arguably could be the main event in almost any wrestling company around. So I'm really curious to see where this match is slotted. And obviously, this Friday we're going to be speaking with ALP, who's going to have, I am sure, a lot to say about that. So excited to have ALP back on, because I don't think we've had ALP on yet this year. So it's been a long time since we've had him, and I'm looking forward to that. And again, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say about this and much, much more, as we're just a few short weeks away from KOW, as we are speaking with our very dear friend, of course, Lucy Simons, who does a phenomenal job. And I want everybody to follow Lucy on Instagram at LucySimo1. Also, please follow her as well on Twitter at Cesaro Stan. And certainly she has done a phenomenal job. When I think back to the first time I spoke with Lucy to where she is now, I mean, she is a superstar. She is definitely going to be like some of those names I mentioned before, Sarah Schreiber and Lillian Garcia, Renee Paquette, all those great people. She's going to definitely be there. And something tells me that she's on her way to even bigger and better things. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. I'll get into KOW much, much more in a little while, but I have a lot to get off my chest here, especially when it comes to Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And I'll save the main event for a few minutes, but there is a match which sort of kind of hits home here to Sportswire Radio first, because I actually want to lead off in, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Because, again, this is kind of one of the more, again, intriguing storylines, to say the least, and it actually doesn't involve an in-ring competitor, quote unquote. We're obviously speaking about Simon Hill, of course, who does a number of things. He's the play-by-play man mostly for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, does some ring work for the LWF, and does game show hosting, amongst many other things. But he's, I guess, sort of embroiled, I guess safe to say, Lucy, in a war of words with the Playboy Prince, Lance Rivera, who was in the house last Thursday. And he was wrestling our own Wildfire Nate Reese, who you hear each and every week here on Sportswire Radio. And Lucy, Wildfire Nate Reese made, I guess, quite an interesting official debut in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, because he took a move for the ages, but yet because of this sort of, I guess, war of words between Lance Rivera and Simon Hill, Wildfire Nate Reese comes away with a much-needed W, and he certainly impresses many and certainly continues his momentum that he had when he faced up with the unforgettable Andre Decker, the 2022 Overboard Rumble winner. So, Lucy, I mean, you were there, obviously, in Morecambe. I mean, set the tables for us. And what happened here between Simon Hill and Lance Rivera, and how it all led to a Wildfire Nate Reese victory here?
Yeah, this match was, as you say, it was kind of tinged with this background of Lance Rivera and Simon Hill. They've been talking. They've been arguing on social media a lot for the past few months, and I don't really know how exactly it started. But they just don't like each other. I mean, they've just got horrible words to say. Lance is angry at Simon because he says, you're not an in-ring competitor, so who are you to criticize me? But anyway, we went into the match with Nate Reese because he was unsuccessful in his last match in Blackpool, but he impressed management enough that he was given a match to debut in Morecambe. So it was interesting to see how the Morecambe fans reacted to him when they'd never seen him before. But they reacted well to him, and they were definitely behind him, especially because Lance Rivera is just quite unbearable. He's very arrogant. He likes to show.
I kind of like him, though. I got to be honest. He definitely won me over a little bit on Thursday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's charismatic. You have to say that.
He's one of the most charismatic people I've ever had on Sportswire Radio. I've had on, you name it. I've had world champions on. I've had politicians on. And I got to be honest, now I'm thinking about it, Lucy. He was more charismatic. I had a state senator on right before the 2020 election, and he blew her out of the water. I mean, Lance Rivera's got charisma oozing out of him.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I could name a lot of wrestlers who are more charismatic than politicians, but yeah, no, definitely. He's got a really unique look too. and he gets the crowd riled up. They don't like him at all, so it was quite easy for them to get behind Nate Reese. And they had like a really high energy battle. To be fair,
Well, Nate Reese is
was
really, again, a great wrestler. I mean, he's a veteran
yes.
wrestler, but he really has great matches. I mean, he's got a long list of them throughout his career. We know him very well here, obviously, on the station.
Yeah, absolutely, and you could definitely tell the amount of skill that both of them brought to the ring. It was not just high energy, but also it was quite high flying too, which you perhaps wouldn't expect. As you said, Nate Reese is quite a veteran, but he obviously that hasn't slowed him down at all. But there was lots of really close pinfalls, like 2 counts, throughout the match, which had everyone on the edge of the seat. As you mentioned, yeah, Nate Reese even got up from a really brutal DDT on the stage, and the thump that made was unbelievable. I mean, that was heard throughout Morecambe, I think. That was obviously really painful, but at the 9 count, he just managed to get back into the ring. So that was quite impressive from him. And but as I said, it was an impressive showing from both the wrestlers. But towards the end, Rivera seemed like he had won the match, but then he could hear Simon Hill, because the Alhambra's it's quite an intimate little venue. So
A little
sometimes you
different
can
than Cloud Nine in the lounge. A little different. I've seen some of
yeah,
the
quite a
clippings.
lot different. So if sometimes you can hear the commentators, especially where I was sitting, they were just right behind me, and Lance Rivera could hear Simon Hill on
Mm.
commentary from the ring, and I mean, I couldn't make out what Simon was saying, but apparently, according to Lance, he was saying things like, "Stop showboating, just go for the pin. You've got the match won. Just go for the pin. What are you doing?"
Mm.
So Lance got really offended that Simon was criticizing him, and he started yelling at him. He was swearing at him, um, and then he did eventually go for the pin, but it was too late.
Mm.
And Nate Reese kicked out at 1 and then rolled him up for the victory. So Nate Reese's quick thinking obviously won him the match, which obviously is a testament. Obviously, being opportunistic is key to winning in wrestling, but I have to feel like Lance Rivera was really disappointed, and will probably blame Simon Hill for the loss.
You know what? It's funny you said that because we had spoke with both of them before the match, and we kind of felt in some ways that both of them were needing a win here, maybe to get themselves in, believe it or not, world title contention, regardless of the outcome of Saturday's main event, which again we'll definitely get into. But I kind of felt, especially with the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera and some of the matches he's had in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and the fact that he is getting a world championship match at Wrestle Island next month, and also Wildfire Nate Reese and how he came this close to beating the unforgettable Andre Decker. Almost the winner of this match could certainly get at the top of the line here for a world title shot, or at least very much be in the discussion. And that's why I kind of think in this match, in a lot of ways, both guys had a lot to lose here. But I mean, what do you think happens here going forward, though, between Simon Hill and the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera? Because Wildfire Nate Reese gets a much needed victory. We just talked about some of the things that are on the line here. But again, Lance Rivera, I mean, this is now 2 events in a row here where we see some type of issue. And on top of that, a social media exchange that has been going on for weeks between the two of them. And we actually played a part of that here on Sportswire Radio. So walk me through what you think happens then between Simon Hill and the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera going forward.
I don't know, because I feel like it must come to a head soon. In wrestling, a war of words always ends up in the ring. And I know that Simon's done some training, but I don't think he's done enough training to get in the ring yet. Certainly not with someone as high caliber as Lance Rivera. So I'm not sure if this is going to just end up in a brawl, an all-out brawl, or what. I mean, I think OPW need to consider Lance Rivera's actions. He's obviously shown immense disrespect. So whether they want to take action on him for that, I'm not sure if I know he was close to getting the victory, but I don't think, obviously it's a loss, and also his behavior. I don't think this is going to spell many opportunities for him in OPW. But in terms of Simon, he's obviously really talented commentator, great interviewer, whatever. But we don't know if he can translate that into the ring. We don't know if he can back up his words in the ring yet. I mean, the only way to find out is to watch him in action, and I don't know when that's going to be.
I'm seeing a trend. I'm seeing a trend here, Lucy, in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and give me your thoughts. And what I'm not going to say is, are you next in the ring? But what I am going to say is, we've seen obviously for months the back and forth between Ethan Edwards, the general manager, or we'll get to say co-general manager. We'll get to that here in a few minutes, and obviously the unforgettable Andre Decker, and of course Simon Hill and Lance Rivera. So it almost seems like, how can I put this, Lucy, that in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, it's almost like the Wild Wild West at times, where we see wrestlers and personalities or wrestlers and management sort of have this, where there's no wall of separation, where it's almost becoming something that's a part of the ring, and where people like Simon Hill and Ethan Edwards, regardless of what you think of them, their roles aren't supposed to be in-ring talent, but yet they're having this interactions with talent like Andre Decker and Lance Rivera. I mean, what does that say, though, about Odyssey in terms of where we don't quite have control, really, and we're not able to corral all this to where wrestlers are focused on doing their jobs and the personalities and management are focused on their jobs? Talk to me about your thoughts on that.
That's a really interesting point. I hadn't actually thought of that before, but I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to end up in the ring anytime soon. But um, but like talking to some of the wrestlers, they are really keen to insult me, push me out the way.
I've seen the footage. I've definitely seen the
Yeah,
footage.
and also like Isaiah Quinn too. He's not a wrestler, but he ended up in the ring.
Well, he was a
So
wrestler, so
he
that's
was
kind
a
of like an
wrestler.
asterisk. It's an
He
asterisk.
was a wrestler, but he's not anymore, and he definitely wasn't willing to fight Sexy Kev. But yeah, does that mean that Odyssey management doesn't have control? That's a controversial question. I think possibly. I don't know. Actually, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think they don't have control. Um, because the reason I'm saying this is because even at the raffle, this past weekend gone at the show, two people emerged from the crowd and started attacking Helena Razor. It was Jenny B and Jackie B. I mean, there's
Well,
no
we know
control.
Jenny B very well from the LWF. Why am I
Exactly.
not surprised on that?
No, it's definitely within her character to do that. So yeah, I mean, I think we need perhaps a more powerful authority figure than Ethan Edwards. I mean, I love the man, but he's obviously willing to get in the ring and take it to the wrestlers, but something else needs to be done.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I almost have to throw it out there because you kind of almost walked me into it. I mean, is there anybody that comes to mind that you might think of that could be a little bit more of a powerful figure than Ethan Edwards? I mean, is there anybody that comes to mind?
I mean, as much as I hate him, Chris Brooker, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a bit more later.
We are definitely getting into him. Oh, we're getting into him.
Yeah.
You better
Um,
believe it.
no one likes him, but I mean, he's got the power in Reese and Rogan and Decker to back him up at least. So maybe he's the answer.
I don't know if the fans in Morecambe, though, would be happy to hear it's Chris Brooker. I mean, certainly
Definitely
the
not.
spotlight would be very happy to hear that, and certainly I'm sure they would have no complaints about that, to say the least. And certainly we're going to get into the spotlight in a few minutes, to say the least, for sure. And obviously, huge victory for Wildfire Nate Reese, and we'll see what happens with the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera. We're supposed to have him back on the show here very shortly in the near and distant future, so we'll certainly see what happens when it comes to that. And also, our Odyssey Pro Wrestling Women's Champion Tonga was in action, and obviously we saw that again. Tonga's not a wrestler. I feel like every time I'm on the air here, I'm always speaking about Tonga, and set the tables for us on what we saw from our reigning defending Women's World Champion in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, Tonga.
Yeah, I mean, at Blackpool, she was meant to face Helena Razor, who was at the show, but she didn't wrestle, and Alexis Falcon. But some Helena Razor obtained an injury, unfortunately, which meant she couldn't wrestle. But we're not really sure exactly why Alexis Falcon had to drop out. So that meant that Tonga had to face Katie Hawkins instead, and she was successful in her match. But Tonga has always said how Alexis Falcon doesn't deserve a rematch because I pinned her, even though it was a bit of a foggy finish. She always said, "No, I'm not going to fight Alexis Falcon. She doesn't deserve the opportunity." So with that in mind, Odyssey management instead made this match against Hallie Hudson, who is one of the biggest up and coming stars in the British
Absolutely.
scene. She's really talented. She's really young. She's really unique, and she seems to have it all going for her. Except recently she got a foot injury, so this was one of her first matches returning. So it was obviously really special for her because not only that, but it's a championship opportunity, so it's a big deal, and it was her debut in Odyssey too. So she was really keen to make an impact, and I think you could definitely tell these two put on an absolute clinic. Just really impressive, skillful mat grappling. Really exciting match from start to finish. And Hallie, to be fair, she really took it to Tonga, and I think a lot of people thought that she had it in the bag. She had Tonga on the mat, and she was trying to lift her up for a slam, but Tonga was just totally dead weight. She was apparently knocked out, but I don't think that was true because about a second later, she was suddenly really fast to push Hallie into the referee. The referee was down and out, and then she went and grabbed her championship belt, hit Hallie in the head with it, who was out cold, and that's how she won the match. She then started beating down on Hallie for no apparent reason, because she'd already won the match. She'd already shown her disrespect. There was really no need for it. But then Alexis Falcon's music hit, and everyone in Markham loves Alexis Falcon. You know, her wrestling was kind of honed in Markham. So they were all really happy to see her. Tonga wasn't happy to see her at all. She scampered away from the ring, into the crowd. So the kids were having fun taunting her when she was stood right next to them. And Alexis Falcon, she got on the mic and she said, "I've been waiting to be in the ring with you for ages, and the first thing you do is run away." So she said, "You've been making too many demands to Odyssey management that I can't wrestle you or whatever. So I'm making a demand of my own. And on June 18th, it's going to be me and you one-on-one for that championship." So obviously Tonga's not going to agree to that, but it's not her decision at the end of the day, really. So I think this match should be made by Odyssey management. It's not been made official just yet, but I certainly think it probably will be. Very excited for that.
I think that would be a great match, and obviously Alexis Falcon is somebody we've spoke about quite a bit here in the show, and I always tell the story, Lucy, that I first got wind of Alexis Falcon from the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus, and we were speaking one day off the air, and he told me, "Watch out for a wrestler," and I always said, "Okay, well, which wrestler was that?" I'm thinking Two-Bit or Scotty Rock, which we're going to get to in a second, but he said Alexis Falcon because the fans really love Alexis Falcon. And she's just a great wrestler. And she's got she's got a certain look and she's got a certain likability with the fans. And clearly Rick Marcus knows talent. And obviously Alexis Falcon is one of those great talents. So certainly that would be a great match. And we certainly hope to speak about that with you. Of course, that'll be June the 18th. So it's not that far away. Listen, I mean, we're having so much fun here. It'll be like in no time. We got KOW coming up. We have Bolton Town Wrestling's Gold Rush next Friday. So a lot to get into here, of course. And speaking of Scotty Rock and Two-Bit, I mean, why weren't these guys a tag team in a way sooner? And I guess they call themselves Scum. I mean, I guess in some ways, I guess that would make sense in a lot of ways. Obviously, Scotty Rock, and he's a singer, obviously outside the ring, and he's a hardcore singer, and he's got that look that, well, I guess he would fit that. And of course, Two-Bit, and we've had Two-Bit on a number of times here on the show, and every time I have Two-Bit on, I'm not sure if the guy's going to come out the stream and rip my heart out and eat it in front of me. I mean, so obviously they were in action against an intriguing tag team of Lucas Neon, who we know very well, and Nick Cutter, who certainly it's a different Nick Cutter than the one that we cover in the LWF. But I mean, Lucy, what happened here? I mean, between the team of Scum, Scotty Rock, and Two-Bit against Lucas Neon and Nick Cutter.
Yeah, as you said, they're calling themselves Scum now. So Scotty Rock got on the mic as soon as he came out to the ring, and he explained that he used to be really offended when Silent Mark would call him Scum, but he's trying to he is embracing it now. Now that he's got Two-Bit and Jennifer by his side. So, and he said, "I'm going to show these people what Scum can do." And he was saying, you know, that Lucas Neon and Nick Cutter aren't up to defeating them. But you know, obviously the fans disagreed. Lucas Neon and Nick Cutter are both really big fan favorites in Markham. They're definitely the underdogs. I'd love to see them win a match one day. They're just kind of poor things. They always just get beaten up, and I don't want to
Yeah,
sound patronizing. I don't want to sound patronizing because they're great wrestlers in their own right. Of course they are, but they just always seem to be on the receiving end of some sort of attack from
yeah.
someone else. So with that in mind, they obviously went into the match with something to prove, and so did Bit and Rock, because they've teamed together because they hadn't really found any success in OPW, so they wanted
Well,
to help.
Two-Bit has been on the peripheral edge of the world title picture.
Yeah,
Two-Bit was one of the guys that we thought maybe would be a potential favorite to win the Overboard Rumble, and he's been
yeah,
kind of on the outside looking in here, this world title picture.
yeah, exactly. He's been on the cusp of success, but he hasn't achieved it. And for a wrestler like Two Bit, I think he finds that really hard to accept.
Mm-hmm.
He's not happy with being second best. He wants to be the best, and I think he took his loss in the championship tournament really badly. So I think that's why he's ended up in this tag team. To be fair, these two worked really, really well together. I mean, you would have thought they'd been teaming for years. Some of the moves they pulled out were really impressive. I'm sure you've probably seen the video of it. I think Scotty Rock posted it today. It was like Bit had hold of I think it was Lucas Neon. Scotty Rock came in with a curb stomp, and then Bit German suplexed him straight away after that, and then he got him in a Boston Crab. That was just really impressive and just
No,
looked.
we've seen their matches and we've covered their matches. I mean, these guys in their own right. When I think about wrestlers in the Odyssey Pro Wrestling roster, Lucy, I mean, they're probably like at the top of the list when I think of wrestlers who can just go. I mean, they can just
Mm.
legitimately go.
Yeah, definitely, and that was definitely reflected in this match. It was just really high energy, really fun to watch. Even though you had Two Bit doing his biting thing and always targeting the leg and doing all that to try and get the victory. It was still a really good match nonetheless. But um, it just didn't really go right for Neon and Nick Cut. I mean, I think they worked together quite well as a team too. But it just didn't really work out for them. Um, there actually wasn't really any sort of shenanigans in the finish. They did kind of win fairly, which is quite a testament to Scotty Rock and Two Bit working together as a team. But they did go for a post-match beatdown for some reason. So it's like any kind of respect that I gained for them from the wrestling is
You
kind of
said that
lost.
in your write-up, but I was reading that Sunday, and we were getting ready for the segment. That was the first thing that struck to my mind. But I will say one thing about Lucas Neon. I mean, it seems like every time he's in the ring in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, he's getting a beatdown. I mean, so it
Yeah,
seems like he's a part of. He must hold the record for beatdowns in Odyssey Pro
yeah,
Wrestling. When I think about wrestlers that have been beaten down as many times as they have, I mean, certainly Lucas Neon definitely holds the record for that. And we'll see what happens between Scotty Rock and Two Bit. Again, two very intriguing wrestlers. Obviously, have had a lot of success in other promotions. We'll certainly get to Two Bit in a little while here for sure, to say the least. So obviously, they get a huge victory, and we'll see what happens with them going into June 18th Mutiny card. And of course, if you like what you hear from Odyssey Pro Wrestling, you can follow Odyssey Pro Wrestling on Twitter at OPW_UK. Also like them on Facebook and Instagram at Odyssey Pro Wrestling. Also subscribe to the YouTube page and much, much more that the company does. We're very, very grateful for all the support and friendship that Odyssey Pro Wrestling has given us here pretty much for over a year now. So when I think back to Odyssey starting up, I think we're right around the time last year we had the announcement for the first show and all that excitement. So I'm very, very delighted to continue that friendship and support with all the great people behind Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And Lucy Simons is one of those people here. So obviously excited to be speaking all things related here to Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And Lucy, I got to talk about it here because obviously it's on the minds of so many people, and certainly it is the match that a lot of people are still talking about. And I'm trying to think of situations where we had such a shocking turn of events here, literally a shocking turn of events here, to say the least. And that shocking turn of events, of course, is our reigning defending champion, our Odyssey Pro Wrestling champion, Ryan Hunter. And now, let me get this straight. He's a member of the Spotlight, and he's still the world champion because we saw there was a triple threat match between him, the natural born fighter RP Davis, and the unforgettable Andre Decker. And this is really surprising to me for a number of different reasons because we kind of overlooked him Thursday on the show here on Sportswire. And we were speaking with Decker and obviously RPD. It was kind of the focus was more or less on them, to say the least. But when you think about what happened here, I mean, I don't know who saw this coming. I asked you, Lucy. Certainly you didn't see it coming.
I'm not sure if you can still hear or see me, but I cannot hear or see you right now.
All right, Lucy, I think we had internet connections. Apparently, I guess the spotlight might have took away our internet. But
Yeah.
before we had got cut off here and we resume on sportnarium.com/player as well here, I mean, the main event here of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and this was certainly a shocking turn of events here, to say the least, between obviously the defending champion Ryan Hunter and also the unforgettable Andre Decker and the natural born fighter RP Davis. And certainly when I think about Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and this wasn't the outcome that I had thought would happen, and certainly most people, maybe every person in Morecambe literally who was there at War on the Shore saw coming. And also when I think about certainly when we were speaking on Thursday's show, when I spoke with Decker and the natural born fighter RP Davis, I don't think that we had really spoke much about Ryan Hunter. So maybe that was the clue here. I mean, but Lucy, I got to ask you here, for everybody watching and listening to this, I mean, what the hell happened here in the main event of Odyssey Pro Wrestling for the World Championship between the current champion Ryan Hunter, the natural born fighter RP Davis, and I guess the teammate of Ryan Hunter is now in the spotlight, the unforgettable Andre Decker?
What the hell happened? That is a good question. That's what everyone in the building was thinking when they left on Saturday. It was obviously big fight feel going into the match. There's been a lot of build up for this, a lot of feuding between Andrew Decker and RP Davis. Like you said, did Ryan Hunter get overlooked in the build up to this match because of that feud between Decker and Davis? And actually, that might have been part of the reason why he ended up joining the spotlight at the end of the match. But anyway, before we got to that, there was obviously a lot of action that was taking place. So Decker told the spotlight to go backstage and let him do it alone. So for most of the match, it was just him. But RPD went straight after him from the bell, which we probably all predicted, showing his boxing punches. Obviously really aggressive because he's really angry at Andre Decker for everything that he's done. He slammed him into the apron, driving him to the floor. It was quite aggressive, and Hunter was just able to kind of chill in the ring while this was going on. It was quite funny. But then once Decker got in the ring, he turned his attention to Hunter after slamming RPD into the ring post. So Decker was on top of the two of them, even though you might have thought that Decker had a disadvantage being against these two guys who obviously didn't like him. He actually did quite well in dealing with them. So he was a big presence in the match throughout. And he actually even managed to reverse the Hunter's arrow, which was quite impressive.
I saw that on the Instagram page, and I was like, and I think Ryan Hunter even was like, "What just happened?"
Yes. Well, I think that was RPD kicking out of the Hunter's arrow later on in the match. But Decker managed to reverse it. And then he went for a superplex from the top rope. Obviously, that took it all out of him. He was too tired to go for the cover. When he did, RPD had made his own way to the top rope, and he launched off with a giant flying elbow to break up the pin. So then Decker found himself in the middle of RPD and Hunter in the ring. So his luck had ran out, unfortunately. I mean, we always talk about the numbers game, and it caught up with Decker in this instance. He was hit with Hunter's signature elbow that he does, and then a Superman punch. So he was left on the floor for the rest of the match. So RPD and Hunter were then facing off. The fans were really torn between who they wanted to cheer for. It was really evenly split. But yeah, it was obviously really quite equal in the battle that they were having. And yeah, like I mentioned, RPD was able to kick out of the Hunter's arrow, which was quite impressive, and I don't think anyone's ever kicked out of it before. So Hunter was really thrown off his game by that. So that meant that RPD could bounce back. So he was gearing up for the Superman punch, surely for the win. And this is when the spotlight came out. And as I mentioned, Decker was spiraled out on the floor. So we all thought, of course, they've come to help Decker. So RPD, quick thinking, he went to grab some steel chairs from under the ring to help him and Ryan Hunter fight off the whole of the spotlight, because Reese and Rogan were there and everything. But that didn't go to plan. Ryan Hunter used the steel chair to hit RPD when his back was turned.
I can't believe I just heard that. I literally can't believe I just heard that. I still can't believe it.
No, I still can't believe it either. And no one in the building could believe it. I mean, it wasn't even like everyone was outraged. It went silent. It was just silent in the Alhambra. It was really like solemn. Like no one knew what to do or say. And then Hunter got RPD up for a really brutal package pile driver onto the steel chair, which he couldn't kick out of. And he won the belt, but no one was cheering. And I don't think that's not something you could ever predict. I mean, Ryan Hunter was just such an icon in Morecambe.
When I think about Morecambe, and I was trying to equate this from Saturday, what happened at War on the Shore. I mean, this is like Hogan Bash at the Beach. I mean, this is like Austin McMahon after WrestleMania 17. I mean, I guess you could say Roman Reigns' return in 2020. I mean, when I'm thinking about all-time swerves or all-time turns, I mean, Ryan Hunter's is honestly right up there.
Yeah, it reminded me of when Seth Rollins turned on the Shield, because it was that same.
Yeah, you could say that one. That was my next one I was going to throw out there.
Yeah, it was that steel chair to the back moment, and no one saw it coming. And yeah, like I said, it was just like everyone was. It was like an upsetting moment. It wasn't even like people were angry. People were like, they couldn't believe it. The genuine shock in that room was unbelievable.
I can't blame them, because I mean, was there anything that led you to say, hey, Ryan Hunter? Because, like I said, Thursday we had Decker and RPD on, and it never really occurred. In fact, Decker spoke about Ryan Hunter, and he spoke about him in ways that led to me to say, you know what? They're not on the same page. They're not. There was no plan here that said, hey, Hunter and Decker were in
No.
cahoots. Nothing said to me Thursday, because we had them both on. Nothing said to me that this was going to happen. There was nothing that led me to think this.
No, and I think you're right. And actually, Decker didn't actually seem to be in on the whole thing. He got up
No.
on the floor. He was really dazed, and Chris Brooker forced him to shake hands with Ryan Hunter. I mean, that wasn't a choice that either of them made. Chris Brooker forced them to. So I don't think Decker was in on this for the whole thing. I think he was just as shocked as we are.
I think so too, because
Yeah.
nothing told me Andre Decker's in business for Andre Decker. He's not in business for Ryan Hunter. And they
Yeah.
have a relationship going back 10 years ago. Not anymore. They trained with each other 10 years ago. Andre Decker spoke about the fact that he was there to beat up Ryan Hunter, and he was there to take his title from him because of that going back to 10 years ago. Nothing said to us that there was a plan between Decker and Hunter to keep the title in Hunter's hands. Remember, Decker, when he was on here, spoke a lot about the injustices that was done toward him, all the actions that by Ethan Edwards against him to put him, unfortunately, from his standpoint, in this predicament that where he was, he had to deal with a Nate Reese. He had to deal with the natural born fighter RP Davis for the championship. He really wanted Ryan Hunter one-on-one. He was the overboard Rumble winner. So there was nothing here, Lucy, that said to me that Andre Decker had a plan to keep the title on Ryan Hunter.
No, I agree. I mean, I think, yeah, like you said, Decker wasn't really in it to win the title for anyone else. He wasn't winning it for the spotlight, even though he's part of the spotlight. He was winning it for himself. So I think seeing Ryan Hunter win it instead of him, and then get all the glory in the spotlight he's not going to be very happy about that. I think Chris Brooker's going to have his work cut out for him to get these two to work together and to see things on the same page. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. And
There's a lot of egos there. There's a lot of cats
Yeah.
that he has to corral there because he's got Reese and Rogan, right? And Reese and Rogan certainly solidified themselves in Odyssey Pro Wrestling with a big win over Synergy, right? You got Andre Decker, who we've heard on here for the past 8 months talk about the injustices that have been done toward him. He wasn't even able to wrestle at the first Odyssey Pro Wrestling show. He has had a long history in his own right with the crowd at Morecambe. And now we've got the world champion here, Ryan Hunter, who's in uncharted territory for his career. I mean, Chris Brooker is going to have to do a lot here to keep Spotlight, I think, intact.
No, I totally agree. It's amazing the amount of bodies he's accumulated and the talent he's accumulated in
such a short time. Short time.
And obviously great success when you've got the world champion with you. But it's going to be difficult to keep all these egos in check, like you said. I think Ryan Hunter, he always used to come across as quite humble, but actually you can tell he's got a bit of an ego, and obviously you kind of expect that because he was so beloved by the fans.
Well, what world champion doesn't have an ego, right? We've had on a lot of world champions on this show over the past 3+ years. I've interviewed a lot of different type of people, and they all have one thing in common, and they may not want to admit it, but they all have massive egos. I mean, so at the end of the day, you're the world champion. You better have an ego. Listen, we speak all the time with different people, and they tell me, Tom, if you ain't in this business and you don't have an ego or you don't want to be the world champion, you're in the wrong line of work here. And certainly Ryan Hunter, for all these years, and we know he's a phenomenal wrestler. We know he can go in the ring. No question about that. But he's had to have always had an ego.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. Like I said, he came across as humble and like always really thankful for the fans. And I think that was true to an extent, but I think, yeah, like you said, you have to have an ego to be successful in wrestling. I think it did get to his head, the amount of love that he was getting. I mean, that definitely came across because he hugged Brooker in the middle of the ring, flipped off the Morecambe fans, and told them, "Oh, it's your fault," mocking them for being upset. And it was really hard to watch, actually. it's hard to see someone fall from grace like that.
And especially because in Morecambe, he was so beloved. We're speaking about
Mhm.
somebody, like I said, he was in Hogan territory. I think about Hogan in Montreal. I think about certainly Ryan Hunter in Morecambe. I think about the relationship that Flair had with the crowd in Charlotte for all those years. I think about so many other wrestlers that I could think of. Certainly, RPD in Blackpool would be one that comes to mind just for us here locally. I mean, there's a long list of wrestlers in certain towns that the British Bulldog, obviously, when it came to Wembley, when it came to any time the WWF was here, or WWE was here in the UK, William Regal also comes to mind. I think about, obviously, the Hart family in Canada. I mean, there's a long list of wrestlers in certain spots that you just know it's their territory. And for me, our champion, our world champion here in Odyssey Pro Wrestling, Ryan Hunter, certainly his following in Morecambe is right up there. This is why this is totally shocking. And I mean, it changes the landscape. I mean, I know that the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus, came out and made the save for the natural born fighter, RP Davis. But as you pointed out in your write up, the damage was clearly done. And I mean, I almost have to ask you, I mean, where do we go from here, you think?
Well, I feel like RPD's gonna want a rematch. Obviously, and he kind of deserves one too. But where does Decker stand in all this? Because he probably feels like he deserves a rematch too. But then you've got Rick in the fray as well, who's going to want revenge, possibly a tag team match. Rick and RPD finally teaming up. I'm not really sure.
And Rick and Andre Decker. Listen, Andre Decker was on here, and Andre Decker took sole credit, rightfully so, that he put Rick Marcus out of action. I mean, you'd
Yeah.
have to think that those two we haven't seen the last of in the Ring and Odyssey.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, they've got history. There's a lot of really bad blood with these men. I think it's got to come to a head, but it's the fact that the championship is involved that really problematizes the whole thing. You could put them in a tag team match, yeah, but what about the championship? Who deserves a championship opportunity
See,
in this
and that's
situation?
now going to be a lingering question here the next several weeks, because where do we go from here when it comes to Odyssey? Obviously, once again, the natural born fighter, RP Davis, finds a black cloud over him when it comes to an ending of a match and a stipulation. And then we have the Cumbrian Outlaw, Rick Marcus, who's returned, and we know his following in Morecambe. Then we have the unforgettable Andre Decker. What happens here? Does this turn into an MJF and Wardlow like storyline here,
Mhm.
where there's sort of like this distrust and there's sort of that interesting dynamic there? I mean, I don't know what happens here. I mean, there's so many tough decisions here that Odyssey has, and another reason why we're going to even have tougher decisions here in Odyssey, because, well, now, as we kind of touched upon a little while ago before we had technical difficulties, Lucy, is that we have I guess, a co-general manager. That Ethan Edwards is no longer solely in power. I mean, so what happens there, you think?
Yeah, Brooker. I'm not sure who made this decision to make Brooker and Ethan Edwards core general managers, as if they're going to be able to see eye to eye on anything. I have no idea what's going to happen in this situation. I mean, yeah, it's like I said, they're not going to agree on anything, so I'm not sure
No,
how
I
it's
mean, it's
gonna
almost,
go.
what are they going to deadlock on everything? Because obviously,
Yeah,
listen, we know that Brooker is going to be surely in the pocket of the spotlight. And then we have
yeah.
Ethan Edwards, and we know his relationship certainly with Andre Decker. And then we've got a comment here I have to get to, and obviously somebody that we spoke about a little while ago, and that is, of course, Simon Hill, who's been on the call here
Yes,
for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, does some ring work for certainly the LWF and much, much more the companies. And Simon says Lucy for GM. I mean, Lucy, I mean, are you interested in the job? I mean, listen, you never know what happens here on Sportswire Radio. We're going to have a GM on in a little while, and obviously Bolton Town Wrestling's own Lucas Jackson. But Lucy, are you interested? Are you going to campaign here for the job? I mean, certainly campaign season is coming up this year. So, I mean, are you interested in the job?
Oh, I might. I don't know. I might submit my CV, see what they think. But I mean, it's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of big personalities. I don't think I could please them all. But I can say one of the things I would do is book Simon versus Lance straight away. That's the
Oh,
first thing I would do.
But does Simon Hill want that match? Does Simon Hill want a match with the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera? You might book that match. But what about Simon Hill? I mean, certainly we'd love to hear Simon Hill's side of the story on Sportswire Radio. Of course, we'd had him on here in the past, and he has obviously been a friend to us, and he certainly heard the clip undoubtedly about him and the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera. But I mean, does Simon Hill want that match? That's what we want to know here. Does he want a match with the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera?
I don't know if he does. I mean, I've seen his videos on Instagram and things. He's training up. He's got to be training up for something.
And he says,
If
"Who
it's not
knows?"
against Lance, then
He
who is it
says,
going to be
"Who knows?"
against?
Here, hit me up. And I guess Simon. I mean, I think we will have to hit you up here in a little while after the stream because I think that certainly might be an open invite here back to Sportswire Radio and talk about what is going on between you and the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera. Certainly, stay tuned. I mean, I will say one thing: Simon Hill is in far better shape than Ethan Edwards to be in the ring. So, I mean, but Simon Hill is still not quite there in being a professional wrestler. As we spoke about, his job is to do commentating and such. So, I mean, obviously, that remains to be seen. So, I guess we'll have to stay tuned when it comes to Simon Hill coming back to this show, and also, obviously, what happens here between him and the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera as we are speaking all things related here to Odyssey Pro Wrestling and KOW and much, much more with our dear friend Lucy Simons, who has the record for appearances on Sportswire Radio. So obviously, congratulations. I guess that would make you almost our Ric Flair of Sportswire Radio and all those appearances. So I mean, I don't know if I could quite do a woo for you right now, but obviously, well, I could say maybe our Charlotte Flair because something tells me Charlotte Flair is going to break Ric Flair's record at some point. I mean, I think we're getting close. So I don't know if it'll be just yet because obviously she still holds the gold on SmackDown, but something tells me that we'll be saying Charlotte Flair one day rather than Ric Flair in most world championships. But of course, if you like what you hear from Lucy, do please give her a follow on Instagram at Lucy Simo, on Cesaro Stan on Twitter. Also, Facebook now, Lucy Simons Pro Wrestling Journalist. Make sure you follow that as well. And also KOW K__O Wrestling as well on Instagram. Also KO_Wrestling on Twitter. Also like their Facebook page, Odyssey Pro Wrestling, OPW_UK on Twitter. Facebook and Instagram at Odyssey Pro Wrestling. Also, like the Facebook page, but also be a part of the Odyssey Pro Wrestling fan group, which I'm a part of, and so many other people are. So make sure you subscribe to that. Also, Patreon page for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, patreon.com/Odyssey Pro Wrestling. Power.tv, Odyssey Pro Wrestling, where you can catch all the great events that the company is doing. And also, if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our content on sportnarium.com/player. And obviously, we're speaking all things related to the world of professional wrestling and much, much more here with Odyssey Pro Wrestling and KOW's own Lucy Simons. And Lucy, going back to KOW here for a little bit before we get back to Odyssey and some other thoughts here for the next half hour or so. I mean, we've got an intriguing championship match here between 2-Bit and a 2 out of 3 falls match with the former champion, the War Machine, Craig Collins, who's back in the picture now. And certainly, I mean, this is a really, really interesting match. I mean, I don't know where to go from here when it comes to this match, but I mean, what do you think that we're going to see at Cloud9 in the Lounge on May the 14th, Redemption main event for the World Championship? The War Machine, Craig Collins, is looking to get his gold that was taken away from him, obviously for some unfortunate reasons. And the current champion, of course, the leader of the underclass, 2-Bit.
Yeah, Craig Collins is going to be really keen for this rematch. To say the least, because as I'm sure we all know by now, at the last show at TakeOver, Collins looked like he was going to win the match. He had gone for his frog splash, which usually wins him the match, and the referee was counting 1, 2, and then he stopped counting. And Collins was obviously furious. He grabbed the ref, and the ref was like, "Oh, I haven't done anything." And then Bit hit a low blow, and the ref didn't do anything. And then he locked in the rat trap. And then giving 2-Bit the win, obviously. And then the referee removed his stripes to reveal a 2-Bit shirt underneath. And it turned out that he is Bit's friend. He's the newest member of the underclass. His name is Logan. And turns out he's a wrestler and he's ready to get in the ring at the next show. But anyway, what we're talking about now is 2-Bit and Collins. So obviously, Collins is fuming about this. And so when Sheriff Steele came down to the ring, he said, Sheriff Steele, you can choose the stipulation, because he obviously deserved it, and he deserved his rematch. And Collins got straight on the mic, and he said, "I haven't wrestled for over 2.5 years," and he said, "I'm not." He actually did say, like, "I'm not best pleased with my performance tonight, but even so, I was conned out of this victory." And he said, "You might have out wrestled me tonight, but at our next show, I'm going to train harder than ever before. And even though I could pick a stipulation that allows me to wrap a steel chair around your skull, that allows me to put you through a table, I want to see who the better man is, who the better wrestler is." So he said he wants it to be a 2 out of 3 falls match to show who is the best wrestler in Barrow. So that's why it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. So that's going to be a test of endurance, is definitely what I would say 2 out of 3 falls matches, and also technique. How do you pace yourself going into a 2 out of 3 falls match? How do you make it so that you can hopefully get the first 2 falls so it doesn't even go to a third fall? It's a difficult one.
Let me ask you a question, though, because I find this intriguing. Obviously, we'll speak with ALP on Friday's show, and we'll see what he thinks on it. But in a 2 out of 3 falls match, like you said, you spoke about the endurance. You spoke about, obviously, the time you have to put in a match like that. I mean, the War Machine, Craig Collins, hadn't been in the ring in, like you pointed out, about 2.5 years, right? Two-Bit, on the other hand, has been in action almost all throughout the pandemic. I mean, he was one of those wrestlers that was in putting himself into the position where he is right now. I mean, I almost have to throw it out there and to be devil's advocate. And again, I'm not necessarily no two-bit supporter and campaigning for two-bit necessarily here to win this match, but I'm going to call a spade here. Do you think, Lucy, that a 2 out of 3 falls match actually favors two-bit in this instance? Because the War Machine, Craig Collins, had not been in action before last month's KOW event in 2.5 years. Two-Bit is in the shape that he could probably go 35, 40 minutes realistically in what a 2 out of 3 falls match would take place in terms of time-wise. What's your thoughts on all that?
No, that's a really good point, Tom. I think it's a type of match that you have to have, like I said, endurance and skill. You have to think it through, a lot of technique. And yeah, Two-Bit's been wrestling non-stop, and Collins hasn't. Basically, that's it. That's the difference. And I think you're right. I think it might actually benefit Two-Bit in a way, because he's already proven that he knows how to come back from.
He always finds a way, the Rat King. He always finds a way.
Exactly. He finds a way to just switch things in his favor, just so suddenly. But I also think he might lose his cool, and he might end up forcing a disqualification to lose one of the falls, perhaps. I think it's just going to be a matter of.
Do you know something that we don't know by pointing that out, Lucy?
That's just something I can see happening. I mean, it happens a lot in 2 out of 3 falls matches, because I think they're so intense that they kind of forget the implications of the match and how much of a disadvantage it's going to give them when they give away a fall. That's something I might perhaps see Two-Bit doing. He is known for using underhand tactics, but he is sneaky about it. So I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he can use his underhand tactics to get a victory and not the disqualification. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how they clash in this type of match. It's going to be really different from the one-on-one match.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really, again, I mean, I've been saying this here throughout the show here. It's going to be a really, really intriguing match. And again, certainly excited to always be speaking about KOW. And speaking of the underclass, I mean, the underclass is certainly going to be making a bid to hold all the gold. I mean, forget about the bloodline. We've said this here before on the show. Forget about the bloodline. There is a possibility come May the 14th, we could see the underclass holding the showcase, the tag team, and of course, Two-Bit were at the World Championship. And of course, our showcase champion is now Keenan, who we're going to be speaking with here in a little while, obviously with Lucas Jackson about obviously what Keenan is doing in Bolton Town Wrestling. But in the meantime, Keenan took that showcase championship from Lucas Neon, and he's holding the trophy. And we're going to see him in action in a triple threat match. So, I mean, set the tables for our now showcase champion Keenan, and what we can expect there is Lucas Neon also is a part of that, and he'll try to reclaim his trophy, quote unquote.
Yeah, Lucas Neon was obviously so disappointed to let go of his Showcase championship at the last show. I mean, yeah, Keenan won the fatal five-way match to
Yep.
qualify into this, but really it was Ryan Hunter who should have won that match. Keenan just happened to jump in at the right moment to get the pin. But it was what it was, and he went on to face Neon later in the night. Um, it was a really good match, to be fair to them both. Keenan obviously proved that he's worthy of a championship opportunity. But you know, Neon deserved the win. Um, he hit his cutter, which is usually a finisher for him. The referee was down for the 3 count, and Jennifer pulled the referee out of the ring. So that meant that Keenan could go for a low blow when the referee didn't see it, and his finisher. That's what gave him the victory in the end. So obviously, Lucas Neon was really upset about this loss because it wasn't fair. So he's going to be wanting to avenge this in this triple threat. But Keenan has obviously proven that he's got the skill and he's got the tricks up his sleeve to retain, and he's not going to want to let go of that championship. So it'll be a high energy match to say the least.
No question, a high energy match, and these are three wrestlers again that you could certainly make cases for them to win this match. And again, it's another great match. I mean, you could almost make a case that could be the main event. I mean, you got some just really, really. I mean, the cards are getting better and better when it comes to Odyssey and KOW because we spoke about at the top, right? RP Davis and the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus, and we spoke about just before the World Championship match and the Showcase Trophy match, and not to be outdone, of course, the underclass and Andre Decker and the newest member who we just touched upon, Logan. It's going to be Andre Decker and Logan. Finally, Andre Decker gets his tag team championship match, and he will get that against the Freak Show of the Unhinged Will Carter and Nightmare. And we'll see if the Freak Show can continue their reign as champions. But I don't know, Lucy. I mean, give me your thoughts on what we can expect here in the tag team championship match here on May the 14th.
I cannot wait to see Logan in the ring for the first time, and obviously none of us know what he's going to bring to the table. I've never seen him wrestle before, so who knows what's going to happen. Obviously, we were meant to have a tables match with Keenan and Decker versus the Freak Show at Takeover, but Will Carter obtained an injury, which meant that couldn't go ahead. So that's why the Fatal Five-Way was made, and yeah, that's why it kind of had to change to Decker versus Nightmare instead. So Nightmare actually won that match with the small package. So Decker wasn't very happy about that. Does that suggest that the Freak Show got the edge going into this match because Nightmare's got that victory on Decker? I think perhaps it does because it'll definitely give the Freak Show this level of confidence.
It gives them a little bit of momentum to level the playing field.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. Momentum. That's what you need going into this type of match. And especially the fact that it's a tables match. So that's what it was originally planned to be. That obviously couldn't happen, so that's what we're going to see Logan and Decker facing off against the Freak Show at the next show. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out. We all know the rules of a tables match. You have to be put through a table for the victory, so it's not like a pinfall. So who knows, it could just happen just like that. You get pushed off the top rope through a table, and that's it. That's the end of the match, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that kind of favors the Freak Show actually because they're very nimble and quick. But also,
I think you said something interesting about this match is that we don't know what to expect from Logan, right? When you think about the other matches, obviously the triple threat match, we have Big Guns Joe and Keenan and Lucas Neon. We know what to expect from them, right? We have RPD and the Cumbrian Outlaw. We know what to expect from them, right? Obviously, Craig Collins, the former champion, looking to reclaim his championship once again against 2-Bit, maybe level the playing field here, 2 out of 3 falls match. But in this case, I mean, Logan's the wild card. We don't know what to expect with Logan. I mean, obviously, Decker and Logan, as far as I know, have been tagged with each other. Will Carter and Nightmare have a long-standing relationship with each other. They're the tag team champions. Even if they haven't wrestled much in KOW together, they're still the champions. They know each other very well. I mean, so Logan here is the wild card. I mean, I don't know what to expect from Logan. I think that's really what I walk away from this, from what you just said.
Definitely, yeah. I have no idea what sort of wrestler he is. I mean, obviously saw him at the last show. He's quite a big dude. I think he's going to be strong. I think he's going to be a bit of
Well,
a
Andre
brawler.
Decker does not surround himself with people who aren't big and strong and are like him.
True.
So that's one thing I know.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think they all started beating down on Collins after the match, and he was throwing some pretty stiff punches. So I think we can obviously expect him to be strong and brutal, as you would expect, because he's in the underclass. But yeah, we don't. It's not like the Freak Show can really prepare properly for this match because they don't know what he's going to bring to the table. But actually, as you said, the Freak Show have got all this experience from being in a tag team together. They know each other really well. They can basically read each other's minds in the ring. That they're a unit. And we don't know if Logan and Decker are going to be like that. So that might not play in their favor.
Let me ask you this question, and it's an overall general question when it comes to the underclass, and it's sort of in a way similar but not so similar to the spotlight. But I'm gonna phrase it in a way that maybe you would have an answer to this. And right now, I kind of think in some ways that the pressure actually might be on the underclass, and here's why. Obviously, 2-Bit is in a match that the stipulation wasn't made by him, and it is sort of a stipulation that we think at least levels the playing field with the War Machine Greg Collins, right? That's one thing. Lucas Neon is looking to get his Showcase championship back. You have Big Guns Joe there, and we've seen him on the WWE Network. So we know that Big Guns Joe is certainly have to count him as also somebody who can credibly win here. And then we have the tag team championship match. We have this new team here. We also have the Freak Show, which do have some momentum because Nightmare pinned Andre Decker. So I'm going to throw this out there and tell me your thoughts. May 14th could potentially make or break the underclass. Give me your thoughts on that.
That is very true. I mean, at the end of the day, they've got everything to lose. Obviously, they haven't got the tag team championships yet, but that's an uphill battle to.
They could walk away empty-handed here. There's a possibility that they could have no gold here, let alone all the gold. There is that possibility here.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I mean, and like there is a lot of pressure on them because I think you have 2-Bit who has high expectations of everyone, including himself. So he's a prize fighter, which I know he's said many times, and he wants all the gold. If he doesn't get that, he's going to be really upset. We've already seen it in Odyssey. He takes it hard when he loses. So I think you're right. I think that's a good point that like there's a lot of pressure on them, especially with Decker going in from the loss from Will Carter and Logan not being a familiar face. It's a triple threat match. It's not one-on-one. That changes things completely. I mean, we haven't even talked about Big Joe, what he brings to the table. He's incredibly experienced.
Well, let's talk about him, man, because he's obviously a big part of the match. And Big Guns Joe, I mean, is almost every wrestling promotion I've had on here over the past year and a half, and he's been a part of them. So let's talk about Big Guns Joe and his part of the match and what chance he brings to the table.
Yeah, he was meant to be in the Fatal 5-Way, but he couldn't make it because he was wrestling in Germany. I mean, that's impressive in itself. He's world traveled.
Oh, he was one of the few wrestlers that we spoke about that was wrestling during COVID. One of the few ones.
Yeah, I mean, he's world traveled. He's so experienced. He's so popular. He's very charismatic. He kind of encapsulates everything that's great about British wrestling. He can play a bad guy. He can play a good guy. He's so charismatic. He's so funny. And he can just deliver in the ring. So he's going to play a really big part in this triple threat. I don't know, because obviously we all know with a triple threat, you don't have to be pinned to lose.
Right.
That's going to play significantly against Keenan, I think, because Lucas Neal's got a big chip on his shoulder to get it back in front of his hometown, and Big Guns Joe wants to prove himself in Barrow once again, and he has the experience to kind of back it up. So I'm not sure. It's as we were saying before, it's kind of everything to lose for the underclass. So it's going to be a tough night for them. But I think with the numbers game that they have, I don't think they're gonna be nervous about it. I think they've got the confidence and the momentum.
They're not going to be nervous. Listen,
No.
there's the underclass and nervous. 2-bit, like you said, 2-bit ain't nervous for nothing. You got Andre Decker, who's never at a loss of words, and Andre Decker, who's does him and nervous that they don't know each other. You got Keenan, who again has established himself as a premier wrestler all throughout the scene. Then you've got Logan. And listen, at the end of the day, Logan is not in that group unless he's expected to deliver. 2-bit doesn't pick people unless he thinks they have value. So at the end of the day, that group right now, I mean, there's certainly, again, Sheriff Steele is trying. He's definitely working the numbers game. He's definitely trying to put together a plan. It seems like we're going to find out here when it comes to that. And certainly we'll see what else happens here in KOW. Again, very excited here. May the 14th at, again, Redemption at Cloud9 The Lounge. Cloud9 The Lounge is always one of my favorite places to watch a match and a show and all the great things there. Of course, our friends who you might know, obviously, from the Parts Unknown are always at KOW. You always see them at Odyssey. I'm sure you've met them, Josh and Daly and Dom, and they do a phenomenal job, obviously, recapping that. They've had ALP on their show as well, and I'm excited to have ALP on for sure, to say the least, on Friday. And we're about 15 or so minutes away from Bolton Town Wrestling General Manager Lucas Jackson. So excited to be speaking Bolton Town Wrestling here. And we have another about, like I said, about 10 or 15 minutes with Lucy Simons. Always happy to have Lucy on. And Lucy, again, Lucy's one of my favorites. She's a superstar. She's done a phenomenal job with all things related covering to wrestling. And I got to bring it up here, Lucy, before we close and get some more thoughts from you here. I mean, apparently, congratulations on your run as president of the Lancaster University Pro Wrestling Society, because I see that our reign and time has come to an end there over there.
Yeah, it has. So we do our elections a few weeks before WrestleMania every year, for a new exec to be elected. So I didn't run because I didn't think I'd be at the university. Obviously, if you're not at the university, you can't be on the exec.
Okay.
So the new exec came into power the day after WrestleMania. So Daniel is the new president, and I'm sure he's going to do an amazing job. He's a great guy, and all the new exec, such lovely people, and they're going to do an amazing job. I know they are. I'm sad to see it go, but also it's nice to be able to enjoy the society without the pressure of having to like make decisions and organize everything. I can just have fun now, which is good. But I've got some decisions to make about my future. Probably going to do a master's degree now. So probably still going to be in the society. Probably still going to be hanging out. Just not going to be on the exec anymore, which will be nice.
All right. Well, listen, I mean, you sound like you're going to do much more important things than I'll do it in most people in their life. So obviously, congratulations on that run. And we wish Daniel a lot of success and anything, of course, that we can do to help the society and help everybody a part of it. You guys do a phenomenal job in covering professional wrestling and just being always there. I always see you guys at an Odyssey show and a KOW show. And so that just shows the support and love that you guys bring to the table here, to say the least. And again, congratulations to Daniel, and also congratulations to you. And I got to ask you then, Lucy, going back to Odyssey before we get closing thoughts, I mean, where else do we go from here? Obviously, we've also got, I guess, do we call him Dark Meltzer at this point? I think it's Dark Meltzer, right? I want to make sure I get that right, because I've gotten it wrong a couple of different times, right? Is it Dark Meltzer?
Dark Mark, I think.
Dark Mark. Okay, so Dark Mark. All right, this is why I wanted to make sure that I get it correct. So we have Dark Mark. Obviously, he was in action against Sexy Kev, and he was able to come away with a victory. And is there anything else that we should keep an eye on when it comes to Odyssey, let's say between now and the next few weeks, before we once again continue to speak Odyssey with you, and I'm sure everybody else, as we get ready for Mutiny?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Sexy Kev versus Dark Mark, because so the Odyssey fans had a chance to vote for the stipulation they wanted.
Yep.
So it was a last man standing match. So it got really quite violent. A child got to punch Meltzer. Kev was encouraging the child to do this when they were fighting throughout the crowd. And Isaiah Quinn found himself in the ring, facing Sexy Kev, and Will Carter tried to throw the Book of Quinn to him to try and help him, but Kev grabbed it instead and hit Quinn across the head with it, which I'm sure Sexy Kev has been wanting to do for a while.
A lot of people have been wanting to do that over the past several months. I can put it out there. That's for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that match actually ended with Kev giving Meltzer a brutal headshot with a steel chair for the victory. And yeah, Isaiah Quinn was not happy. I mean, no one in the Freak Show was happy about that. So I think you need to look out for the fallout from that match. I'm not sure, is this going to cause tensions in the Freak Show? Is Isaiah Quinn going to be angry at Mark for losing? Is he going to be angry at Will Carter for throwing the book and it not going to plan? I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. I'm looking forward to seeing how the dynamics change. And can I just say, like, what an awesome faction. If we ever had like a Survivor Series type thing, Freak Show versus the Spotlight, that would be pretty cool.
You know, that's interesting that you brought that up, because there was a part of me that says, when we think about groups right now, and obviously the two main factions are the Spotlight and the Freak Show. And with the Freak Show, we have obviously Nightmare, the unhinged Will Carter, and Dark Mark. And then we have the Spotlight with Andre Decker, the current champion, Ryan Hunter, and Reese and Rogan. I mean, does that mean that the guiding light Isaiah Quinn is in action? Is he part of that? I mean, does the Freak Show add a new member? I mean, you would have to think the numbers game would have to be even here. So I mean, who's in, who's out, and who's doing what?
I think maybe you could take Ryan Hunter out and then it will be equal. Unless Isaiah Quinn uses his, I don't know what you would call them, manipulation skills to get someone else to join.
That's the Randy Orton and certainly the guiding line Isaiah Quinn, how he manipulated the Street Profits versus the Usos on Raw last night, when we thought it was going to be the Usos and obviously RK Bro. So that there's Isaiah Quinn's Randy Orton in him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, I'm not sure if he's going to try and target someone else. And if he is, I'm not sure who that could be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who you would target when I'm looking at the Odyssey roster. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, Scotty Rock would actually fit the Freak Show perfectly. I mean, but I think Scotty Rock right now is with 2-Bit. So that would mean that I assume would not happen. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's really the wild card here. What happens when it comes to that? I mean, that's certainly an interesting proposition. And certainly, again, an interesting relationship between the Freak Show and Isaiah Quinn, particularly Dark Mark and Isaiah Quinn. Obviously, what happens there between Nightmare and Will Carter. I mean, there's a lot there that certainly is to be desired. And for KOW also, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot with ALP to get into, because we haven't had him on here in a while. And that'll be at 7 o'clock UK time here. So, in fact, ALP is our leadoff show for all of our live shows, because usually we have a live DJ Dale, and he's going to be away this coming week. So that means I run the dial for the whole Friday night. So we're happy to be able to put our entire lineup live Friday night. So thank you, Dale, and away for that. But what else should we keep an eye on here for KOW that we should speak about with ALP on Friday's show?
In Odyssey or KOW, sorry.
I mentioned with ALP for KOW.
Yeah. I thought so, but then I've got this screen up on my computer about Odyssey, so it just threw me off.
Well, listen, in some ways, I think like half of the KOW roster is on Odyssey anyway, so it's sort of like we're going to speak with Bolton Town's Lucas Jackson. Like half of the LWF's roster is on Bolton Town. It's like with Odyssey and KOW, it's almost the same thing. So I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, but yeah. So in terms of KOW, I think there's a few names that popped up on the last card that haven't been confirmed for a match yet that I think deserve to come back. So I'm thinking Lance Rivera, obviously we've already talked about him tonight. He made his debut at KOW. We all think he's really great, really charismatic. We want to see him back. Dynamite Lee Dawson as well. I mean, yeah, Dynamite just sums him up perfectly. Love to see him back in KOW. Try and make a name for himself there. Perhaps Dynamite Lee versus Lance. They kind of had an opportunity to face each other in the Fatal 5-Way, but not really. So it'd be interesting to see them two one-on-one. Got quite a clash of styles, I think, so that'll be quite interesting. And obviously, just it's all about the underclass. Unfortunately, I mean, there's not much else to say. It's all about the underclass.
No, I think, like I said, to me, KOW, it's make or break right now with the underclass, because in a way they're on the clock. I mean, when I think about some of the groups in pro wrestling, obviously the Wrecking Crew and the LWF, certainly the Spotlight in Odyssey, I guess to an extent the Freak Show, to an extent. But to me, the three main groups that we speak about here on this show, The LWF is the Wrecking Crew. They have tag team gold. They don't have the world gold, though. And we have an Odyssey. We have the Spotlight. They have the world championship right now in Ryan Hunter. So you got to give Chris Brooker that much. And obviously in KOW, the underclass has the showcase and the world championship. But do they hold all the gold, or do they hold nothing? Or maybe do they stay even and let's say Keenan loses, but Two-Bit retains? Or could even be a wild card situation. But what about maybe if the underclass holds the tag belts and Keenan and Two-Bit? There's so many scenarios that you can go with the underclass. That's why I really think right now with KOW, like you said, the underclass are on the clock.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many possibilities. I mean, it's just a testament to how much of an impact they've had that they're in so many title pictures. They're in all the title pictures in KOW.
Unreal. It's
quite an
unreal.
achievement.
It's unreal. Listen, the Bloodline, you can't even say that about the Bloodline. There's a lot of groups that you could think about in professional wrestling. The Elite, you can't say that about anymore because they're not really a group anymore. And there's a number of groups that you think about you really can't say that about. But in KOW, these guys, and I guess Jennifer to an extent as well because she's on the side as well, but they have a chance to do something that very few groups in all of wrestling do, and that's hold every single belt there is in KOW. So, I mean, there's a lot to get into here, to say the least, with KOW and Odyssey, and Lucy Simons is going to be right in the thick of it. So, Lucy, don't become a Simon Hill and Ethan Edwards where you got to get in there and get in the ring. Just try to just stick to your job, and obviously we'll certainly see what happens here. But, Lucy, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug? You're welcome to do so. Any social media we missed? Anything else on your mind? You know the drill, and I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tom. Really enjoy our talks about everything OPW, KOW. It's all so fun. Absolutely love it. Obviously, you want to follow them on Instagram, and Twitter, like I'm sure you've already said, and you're probably going to go on to say. Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter at CesaroStan. Might have to change that soon if you.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything about that. My unfortunate condolences about Cesaro, although I'm assuming we're going to see him in AEW at some point. I would have to think.
Oh, certainly. I don't see it as a bad thing. I mean, I'm happy for him. He's got to do what makes him happy at the end of the day.
Yep.
And yeah, other things to plug. Go like my Facebook page. It's Lucy Simons Pro Wrestling Journalist, so you can go like that. All my interviews that I do get posted on there, as well as all the reviews, reports, previews, predictions. Everything gets on there, so you can see it all. Keep caught up with all the news. And you can follow me on Instagram as well if you want. It's LucySim01. And yeah, I'm not president anymore, but I'd love it if you could go follow the Lancaster University Pro Wrestling Society. I love everything that they do over there. Basically, you'll just get to see what we get up to. We travel around the Northwest watching wrestling shows. We do predictions contests. We do gaming competitions, things like this. We just have a lot of fun. So that's Lancaster Wrestle Sock on Instagram, and it's LUPWW_sock on Twitter too. And we've got a Facebook page as well, which is just Lancaster Pro Wrestling Society. I think that's everything.
And I stand corrected on one thing, because I actually think I incorrectly said that Dark Mark had got the win over Sexy Kev. So I do want to make sure that if anybody does, I think I did. So I want to make sure at least I got it correct, because I do stand corrected, because I think I read it wrong, and certainly my eyes might need to be checked. But obviously, Sexy Kev did get a victory over Dark Mark, which led to obviously what we spoke about, but the Freak Show. But most importantly, you want to follow Lucy Simons, because she is just, again, she's a superstar. She is definitely somebody that you see out and about in all these different great companies, and I'm sure many, many more here in the future. And of course, that's Cesaro Stan on Twitter and Lucy Simo1 on Instagram, and also KOW. Please follow K_O_wrestling on Instagram, KO_wrestling on Twitter. Also like their Facebook page, OPW_UK on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at Odyssey Pro Wrestling. Also Power.tv for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, Patreon/Odyssey Pro Wrestling, where you can have some really cool interactive stuff that you can be a part of. And we always want to support those who have supported us in Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And when I think about Sportswire Radio and where we are today, Odyssey Pro Wrestling has been one of our biggest champions, one of our biggest supporters. And like the post from Ant, the editor, said, last night with RPD. It's real in Morecambe. It's real in Odyssey. It's real in KOW. Listen, we love WWE, love AEW, love those other companies, but I don't think it's real. Like what I saw with that photo with RPD and the fan. It's real in these companies. To me, winners and losers, I don't think it's predetermined. That's all I'm going to say. To me, I don't buy that whole wrestling is fake BS. It's real in Morecambe. It's real in Barrow. It's real at the Alhambra. It's real at Cloud9 in the Lounge. And Lucy Simon is going to be a part of that. Lucy, I can't thank you enough for all that you do for us. I'm looking forward to having you back here next month, and we'll definitely speak with you soon here, my friend.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Tom.
And that was Lucy Simons here, of course, who does a phenomenal job with Odyssey Pro Wrestling and KOW. You can follow her again on Twitter at Cesaro Stan and also Instagram at LucySimon01. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. We're about to bring on here for the first time here, ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time. This is a very historic moment here, and we're going to certainly try to top what Lucy Simons had to say about Odyssey Pro Wrestling and KOW, because we are now speaking with a new friend of the show, and obviously a company that I feel like we've spoke about here for the past several months, and for whatever reason, I don't know why we haven't spoke anything about Bolton Town Wrestling specifically with those that are behind it, but I'm looking forward to diving into their important card here next Friday. The Gold Rush. It is certainly going to be a rush for gold. They've got some great matches. They've got a raffle and a rumble and so much more in between. And for the first time, and without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, the general manager here for Bolton Town Wrestling, that's Lucas Jackson. My friend, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me. That's an awesome intro. That's nearly as good as one of Jock's. Nearly.
I'll take the nearly, because anything nearly, right? So at the end of the day, we'll work on it. Hopefully when we have you on maybe after Gold Rush next Friday, we'll improve just a little bit. But obviously, I'm happy to have you here, my friend. Obviously excited about this. We've been speaking with each other here for quite a bit over the past several weeks, and a lot to get into, because as I said, and kind of leading off to have you come on here tonight, that there's so many wrestlers that are friends of the show that we've had on here, Sportswire Radio, that are part of your roster. And that's what makes me so excited about this card coming up here for next Friday. So for those that are watching and listening to you for the first time and are hearing about Bolton Town Wrestling in an official capacity, talk about what we have in store next Friday for the Gold Rush.
Okay, so April 22nd. Ellesmere Road Recreational Club, Bolton, in the UK. We are proud to present the Gold Rush, an absolutely stacked card, including a 10-man rumble, a ladies triple threat match, which includes two of the hottest talents across the north of England, as well as a very, very hardworking and very special debutante. We've got Maverick Matt Williams' Open Challenge, and unlike his last Open Challenge, this one we know who the challenger is going to be in advance. It was quite exciting to get the phone call from the challenger. We've got a number one contenders match that is steeped in anger, in hatred. Going right back to our first show, just under a year ago, between Stocks and Bentley.
We know Bentley very well here. Bentley certainly has been on here in the past. We had him on right before his match with Franco Varga. That's going to be a barn burner there, to say the least.
Heck yeah. And the winner of the 10-man rumble will get inserted into our championship match, which isn't just for one title. We've got two on the line. We've got the BTW title, and we've got the GT Ministries title with, I believe, a friend of the show, Gareth Angel.
Yep. That's why I was excited, because I knew where this was going, because I saw that here was posted. So that's definitely a friend of the show in Mr. Gareth Angel. Absolutely. I got excited already.
So you've got two champions. You've got two falls. And you've also got the mystery of the winner of the Rumble. So these guys, Rarebit and Gareth Angel, preparing at the moment.
And we saw them. They have had quite a feud in GT Ministries. They have had some feud there in GT Ministries.
Oh, yes. I've been watching that one very closely. My lips for when we get the chance to put them into the Gold Rush. So they know each other reasonably well. But the unknown factor of the Rumble winner coming in at such short notice. I mean, it's maybe an hour between the Rumble ending and the main event. You know, you can't prepare in that sort of time. You just can't. So they've got to be on the top of their game to hold on to their titles.
You know, well, I'll tell you what. I want to talk about the World Championship match because I have a couple of thoughts on that, and I'm glad you kind of brought that up. And we'll get into Bentley, and we'll get into obviously Eitan Steen and Helena Razor. You kind of segue. Obviously, the Wrecking Crews, Chris Stone and Davey Getzky are part of Bolton Town Wrestling. I'll get into all of that. And Helena Razor is also a friend of the show. So there's a lot of people that I have to mention, and we'll get to them certainly in a little while. But first, I want to talk about the World Championship match because I'm glad that you guys have this stipulation here and another belt, and obviously the GT Ministries champion Gareth Angel and the Bolton Town Wrestling champion Rarebit, because this was something that when I had Gareth Angel on, I want to say now, maybe about 2 months ago, and I had him on just about 2 months or so ago. My original idea was to have the LWF champion, Reynaldo, as a part of this match, but unfortunately, that didn't work out for whatever reasons, and that's for that company to decide. But I'm excited about the fact, Lucas, that you're actually going out there and saying, you know what? I'm going to take my champion, Rarebit, and I'm going to put in and interject another company's champion, the GT Ministries champion, Gareth Angel, and give the people what they want here. And then on top of that, insert someone else who wins this Rumble here. I mean, this is really a really unique idea here. And I think this is really a reason why people need to support and come out to Friday's show in Bolton on the 22nd. So, I mean, talk to me about just putting this match together and giving the people, I think, what they want. And frankly, doing something here that a lot more wrestling companies, to be frank, should be doing.
So we had Gareth on one of our previous shows, and we spoke long and hard about him putting his title, his GT Ministries title, on the line in Bolton. And after quite a lot of negotiations, he agreed. And he was going to put the title on the line, and ended up being against both Bentley and Stocks. It was a change to the promoted match, but you know, Gareth came through at the end of the day. Now, on the back of those conversations about Gareth putting his title on the line at BTW, we sent Rarebit over to Bradford.
Saw that
with the BTW title, and to defend it across there. You know, this symbiotic relationship between the two brands, which in quite a dog-eat-dog industry, you don't get too much of.
No, not at all.
Really proud of the fact that we've been able to garner this relationship with GT Ministries across the border. So we have had Rarebit destroying all comers.
Oh, he's dominant. I mean, listen, I saw him in GT Ministries. I mean, this guy is just, he's a giant. I mean, he's literally somebody that I don't know who could stop him. I really don't.
Exactly. So who could stop him? Well, you've got to look to the best. You've got to look around you at the other companies, at who's the best in there. Gareth's got the strap. That makes him the man in GT Ministries. So I'm very, very excited to put our guy against their guy. 2 falls. First will be for one of the titles. Second will be for the other title. And we'll see who comes away with anything. Everything could change.
See, what's so fascinating, and I have a couple of questions on this, but what's so fascinating about this is theoretically, Gareth Angel could be the Bolton Town Wrestling champion, and Rarebit theoretically could be the GT Ministries champion. So that's kind of intriguing in itself. I mean, that's kind of interesting. That's my first part of the question. I mean, I guess that's kind of a cool factor, I guess.
Or neither of them could come away with the belt. Your mystery third man, the Rumble winner, could pin and get both falls. Pinfall, submission, countouts.
Yep.
He could end up laying them to waste and walk out a double champion across two companies, having walked in with no belts.
Wow. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, forget about Roman Reigns here. Forget about Kenny Omega's run last year throughout the professional wrestling world. I mean, you could have whoever wins that Rumble next Friday at Bolton Town Wrestling's Gold Rush. And, of course, you can follow Bolton Town Wrestling on Instagram at Bolton Wrestling. And, of course, Bolton Town Wrestling on Instagram as well. I mean, you could theoretically have a champion that we don't even see coming here. I mean, this could certainly be something that won for the ages here. I mean, I don't even know if I've seen a scenario like the one you guys have coming up next Friday. I really don't think so. I think I've seen one.
I mean, even as something like King of the Ring in WWE, where they've crowned a champion at the end of the tournament.
They've crowned a champion, but not multiple championships.
Not multiple championships, and that was only eight possible guys.
Yep.
From your qualifying through to the final. We've got a 10-man Rumble, plus Gareth Angel, plus Rare Bits. 12 potential men that could come out of here with a belt.
Let me ask you a question, Lucas, and I'm curious on your thoughts on this, because this is something I guess we sort of touched upon with Gareth, and I know, listen, we speak with a lot of different wrestling companies out there. We just had on Lucy Simons from Odyssey and KOW, and we speak a ton about the LWF. I had Mikey Fitzgerald on, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I'm curious on this because you would know, because obviously you're in management, you're in leadership, so you would certainly maybe understand why this happens or doesn't happen really often, if at all. Why do you think that other companies don't work with each other and say, hey, you know what? I want to put so-and-so's champion with so-and-so's champion. What you guys are doing, a lot of companies shy away from it. They shy away from it for different reasons, whether it's a business decision, whether it's a traveling reason, whether it's scheduling or politics, and which is a large part of it. It's certainly politics. And coming from myself, who's had spent a long time in the political world here in New York, I certainly know what that's like. But in terms of here, talk to me. Why do you think that it doesn't happen so often where companies say, you know what? I want to give the people what they want. Let's put champion versus champion, or champion versus champion versus champion. I mean, why do you think it just doesn't happen?
So I think a lot of it is narrow-mindedness, and probably quite a lot of pride. You don't want to put yourself out there that your champion might get beat, and that says to me that while they're your champion, you don't truly believe that they're your champion. Because if you're not willing to take that risk and put them out there against the best that you can find around the country, then are you really backing your guy? Do you really think that he's the right man to be the face of your company, to be leading you forwards? Sure, there'll be some bits that are logistic issues.
Sure.
Maybe monetary issues. Some people's purse might be a bit more steep than your company might want to pay out for. But at the end of the day, if you can get something from this, bums on seats, eyes on your brand, talk, 50 to 100 miles away about your brand, because your guy is showing up on their show or their guy is coming to your show. Even if those people aren't coming to your show because it might be just too far away for them, they'll be watching it. They'll be keeping an eye on the socials. They'll be looking for maybe a DVD release or a streaming release of that show to catch up on what happened, not just taking the word of mouth from other people who've been there.
Sure.
And ultimately, we're putting on a spectacle. People are coming and paying their hard-earned cash, and we as a brand should be putting on the best show that we possibly can. And for us, at Gold Rush, I don't think of a better match, or rather two better matches. The Rumble itself that then leads into this triple threat, two-fall, double championship match.
Again, this is one for the ages. Forget about Brock and Roman that just took place. Forget about Becky and Bianca. Forget about Charlotte and Ronda. Forget about all those matches, right? Forget about what we're going to see with Hangman Page and Adam Cole, baby. I mean, you got a match here that's going to be for the ages. between Gareth Angel, friend of the show, Rarebit, can't quite say friend of the show, but certainly can say the Bolton Town Wrestling champion, of course, and the winner of the 10-man Rumble coming up here. And these are reasons why also that if you have a chance, you can get down to Bolton. Tickets are seven pounds, I believe, right? £7. Am I correct in stating £7?
I am pretty certain they are.
All right, so £7. And you can do so for getting more information on buying those tickets. You can go to Bolton Wrestling on Twitter, Bolton Town Wrestling, also on Instagram. And we have a comment here for somebody that might know one of the champions here. And obviously, that's the champion in GT Ministries. And that comment here is Angel 2 Belt. So we don't want to tip our hands and reveal who might that person be, but you can certainly fill in the blanks. But certainly, we have somebody here that might know the current GT Ministries champion and friend of the show, obviously. And certainly, could Gareth Angel hold 2 belts? I mean, you're the general manager in Bolton Town Wrestling. I mean, Lucas, talk to me about your thoughts on that possibility.
So, I mean, I know Gareth Thompson. I know he is an absolutely huge Gareth Angel fan. I don't think you'll find a bigger fan of Gareth Angel than.
Can't blame him, and I can't blame him one bit. Can't blame him.
And you know what? I've watched Gareth. I've seen him come into BTW. I've spent that time around him. I've watched his matches. I've watched some of GT Ministries. And yeah, Angel 2 belts. It could happen. It really could. But I've also spent a lot of time watching Rarebit.
Yeah, Rarebit's a bad. He's a bad man. To quote Rikishi's once theme song, when he turned on the rock, he's a bad man. Rarebit is a bad man.
He's not just bad. He is so scary.
Well,
he is unbelievably scary. So intimidating. You know, from his entrance to just the way he moves around the ring. I don't know if you saw the other week, he debuted at Pro Wrestling For You. They carried him into the ring in a body bag.
Yes, I did see
which
that.
he then escaped from. That mind games that play when he's coming out to the ring are just phenomenal. I mean, yeah, Angel 2 belts could happen.
I mean, Becky's not wearing 2 belts anymore, so we could have a replacement Angel 2 belts.
We could, but he could also end up as Angel No belts.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, that's certainly a good point. I mean, certainly, would Mr. Thompson have any thoughts on that possibility? I mean, there is, to be fair. I mean, I even threw it out there, Mr. Thompson, that there's a possibility that, let's say, Gareth Angel could be the Bolton Town Wrestling champion and not be the GT Ministries champion. I mean, and I got to jump in because I have a comment that you may or may not want me to scream, but I'm going to get to that comment next. But finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I mean, having worked with Gareth, I'd be honored if he ended up as the BTW champion.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a bad thing, but I don't think he should come into this fight too lightly. I don't think he should overlook the Rarebit. I certainly don't think that he should be overlooking any of the 10 men, 5 of whom he'll know really well because they're coming across from GT Ministries.
Yeah, something tells me that was happening.
Maybe there'll be some collusion. You know, if the Rumble winner comes from GT Ministries, are they going to play it safe? Are they going to work together? You know, this isn't a Royal Rumble. It's not every man for himself when it gets to that title match. And the same could be said from the Bolton Town Wrestling side. Now, I don't know anyone that is in the Rumble that would class Rarebit as any kind of friend or ally. I'm not sure Rarebit's got any allies. But...
So to quote the Macho Man Randy Savage's song when he did an album, Be a Man, there's no perfect friend for Rarebit, you're saying?
No, absolutely not. We've seen some of over in GT Ministries, we've seen him run alongside with Dangerous, Jack Johnson and Alex Boylan.
Well, Jack Johnson, you might be curious to know soon we have a comment or two from. It's coming soon. We do have the Mr. Thompson comment here also we need to address. If both belts on the line, we could have Rarebit as the GT Ministries champ and Angel as the Bolton Town champ. I mean, would you care to comment on that?
I mean, it could happen. Like I said, you've got 2 falls, You've got 3 competitors. You're gonna have 2 people from one brand in that match because of the results of the Rumble, and that could that could sway the balance massively to one of these 2 people getting a different belt at the end of the night.
Well, that certainly could be a very, very intriguing storyline here, and I have to bring up the comments here from the aforementioned Jack Johnson, who I understand that you and him have some type of back and forth with, and here's one of the comments. The first one here.
Once we've got that comment out of the way, I feel we probably need to maybe give a little bit of a history.
All right, so from your side, because we had Jack Johnson on here, I want to say maybe just before Gareth Angel, and we'll play up some of these comments. Talk to me about your history, your interesting history with you and Mr. Johnson in Bolton Town Wrestling. So talk to me.
So Jack took quite an exception to the fact that he wasn't booked on one of our shows. He had, as he often voices, he was in the first ever BTW match, which he won. He got through to the final of the tournament, which he didn't win. And he took exception to the fact that we hadn't booked him. And he somehow found where I lived and attacked me in my house.
So how did he find your address? I'm just curious. Do you have a public listing?
I don't know. I mean, he could quite easily have got it from out of, our.
Do you guys have like the yellow pages? Because in New York, we used to have a yellow pages. Do you have like your address listed in the yellow?
We do have yellow pages, but I'm pretty certain that he just looked through some of the health and safety forms that we filled in.
Okay. That makes sense.
I might not like him, but he's a smart cookie, And he came and he injured me. He put me into the hospital. And while I was in the hospital, obviously massively angry at the fact that this invasion into my house and sheer disrespect, I put a bounty on his head to anyone in BTW to take him down. Now, at our last show, there was no Jack. I had banned him from the building. It was my first show back after the injuries. We had security posted to make sure he didn't get into the building. But in the middle of a raffle, when I thought I had the Wasp helping me, I ended up with a raffle bucket to the head and Jack Johnson on top of me beating me. Now, the disrespect that Jack has shown me. We've got a match. He is in a tag team match with his running buddy, Alex Boylan, and they're going to go against the man who came out to save me at the last show during the raffle, Dynamite Lee Dawson.
Oh, we saw that. We definitely saw that, Dynamite Lee Dawson. And also, Mr. Thompson has interjected also in here saying that he didn't realize, again, this is Mr. Thompson, who's certainly a fan of Mr. Gareth Angel. Certainly, he's a fan of his, so he might be able to relay some information here. He says he didn't realize there was a bounty on Jack Johnson. I've got a feeling a Divine Avenger might just come collecting. Care to elaborate on that?
If that Divine Avenger wants to come and claim the bounty, I am more than happy to hand over the bounty. Bring me the head of Jack Johnson.
Ooh, big words here, and I know that Mr. Johnson is certainly listening here. I mean, certainly that is very, very big words here and bold words, and certainly I'm sure that Mr. Johnson.
As part of that, we've got Dynamite Lee Dawson, and we've got the man that Jack beat in that first match at BTW, Keenan.
Oh, we know Keenan very well. In fact, we just spent a lot of time speaking about Keenan. He is the showcase winner over in KOW. So Keenan, and we know Keenan from the LWF as well. So that's a very, very intriguing situation there.
Very much on a roll, Keenan, at the moment, as is Dynamite Lee. And I've got to say, I couldn't have dreamed of having 2 better men. He's going to do Salford-related things. Should we inform the police?
Well, that's is that possible? I mean, I don't know if Mr. Johnson wants to elaborate on and comment on that. I mean, that's certainly up to
I don't
Mr.
think
Johnson.
Jack should incriminate himself any more than he already has done by
Mm.
posting videos just before a home invasion. I really don't.
I'm trying to think of home invasions if that's occurred in wrestling. Maybe Brian Pillman and Stone Cold Steve Austin, famously.
That was the one that came to my head as I'm lying.
And The Undertaker, and I forgot Vince McMahon's house and The Undertaker. How could I not forget about that one?
So I've pulled together Dynamite Lee and Keenan.
Okay.
To try and go out there and exact some revenge for me and for themselves. And as Jack pointed out on Instagram, they don't like me. They might not like me, but as their boss, as their general manager, they respect me. And they sure as hell don't like you, Jack.
Ooh, well, certainly those are some interesting situations here, to say the least. And again, these are reasons why that you're going to want to come out and watch the Gold Rush here. Again, cannot stress this enough. Next Friday, and listen, Bolton Town Wrestling clearly knows what they're doing, because they put their events on Fridays, because everybody else we usually cover on Sportswire Radio usually covers them on Saturdays. So they usually have theirs on Saturdays. They have theirs on Fridays. They got some great matches upcoming here. Obviously, Dynamite Lee Dawson and Keen will be in action against Alex Boylan and the aforementioned Jack Johnson, which we just spoke about. Obviously, 10-man rumble here. I have a lot to get into here. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And of course, if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, please do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. I want to thank, obviously, Lucas Jackson here of Bolton Town Wrestling for giving us this opportunity. I'm looking forward to speaking with him regularly before their shows and anything else that we can do to promote Bolton Town Wrestling. Because, again, as I pointed out in my post on Twitter, wrestling is real in the UK. In WWE and AEW, I mean, I don't know if it's so real, but I can guarantee you, and people often ask me this all the time, which I said on Twitter, I've been getting asked this all the time for the past year and a half. Why do I cover wrestling in the UK? Because it's real in the UK. To me, it ain't predetermined. To me, forget about all that BS you hear about wrestling being fake. In wrestling in the UK, it's not like anything else you're going to see. These are reasons why you also want to follow Bolton Town Wrestling on Instagram at Bolton Town Wrestling. Also, Twitter Bolton Wrestling, because I can assure you this is a company that has been one of our favorites, and many friends of the show are a part of Bolton Town Wrestling. So I want to make sure that we support and acknowledge those. And Lucas, I think we spoke about it. Maybe we touched upon it at the opening here, but I do want to mention a very good friend of ours, Eitan Steen, is going to be in action against Maverick Matt Williams. And Eitan Steen, I think he's arguably a part of maybe I can't say it's the biggest match in LWF history, but he's a part of maybe one of the biggest spots in LWF history. And he is going to be a part of, obviously, Saturday's card. We'll see with what our friend, the Acid Stephen Cross, does to him next Saturday for the Slamaganza in the Castle Cup semifinals tournament. But certainly we will see Eitan Steen in action in the Maverick Open Challenge here against Maverick Matt Williams. I mean, Lucas, this is a match that could be a main event in almost any other company. I mean, I'm really intrigued to hear about this match, and set the tables for us again here and what we can expect between Eitan Steen and Maverick Matt Williams.
I mean, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Tom. This could be a main event anywhere, but on such a stacked card, it's such a shame that it's not going to be the main event.
Yeah.
Now, Maverick Matt has been running an open challenge, and this came off the back of him being jumped from behind by the Wrecking Crew guys.
Oh, we're going to get to them next. We're going to get to them.
Guys that you know very well.
Oh, we know them very well, the Wrecking Crew. They've interfered on many of my streams over the past several months. Know them very, very well.
And Matt came to me and said, we need to stop this. I don't want to get hit from behind. I'm happy to take on anyone that wants to step in the ring, but they've got to do it the right way. And I fully support Matt with this. So at our last show, Axel Strife came out of the crowd. He had 2 minutes to get himself ready and jump in the ring with Matt. Now, over the last month or so, I've had a couple of phone calls from a few different people, and the one that rang like money to me was the phone call from Steen. Like he phoned me up, and I just
If
jumped.
Steen called you, something big was up, because I know Steen. I know him very well.
You know, he heard about the Maverick Challenge. He wanted to come and see what BTW was all about. He'd obviously heard about Wrecking Crew coming in and trying to take over. You know, the fact that he contacted us, I absolutely snatched his hand off to get him into this event. And that's why we were so happy to put it out there before the event that this is the open challenge. You know, future open challenges might not get announced. They might just happen on the night. But this one, anyone who knows wrestling in the northwest of England knows what a match this could be.
Absolutely. Again, Steen is somebody that I've been talking about quite a bit here, and there's a possibility that he could be the Castle Cup winner in the LWF, and we'll see what's left of him, though, Saturday at Slamaganza, but we will definitely see him in action for sure next Friday at Gold Rush for Bolton Town Wrestling. And another match that I want to speak about on the women's end here, interesting triple threat match, and I was hearing you, I think, on the Damn It Vince podcast and last week speak about some of these matches here, and got an interesting match here, and Harley Rose, and obviously she's making her debut here for Bolton.
Tom.
Hasley, I apologize. I
put some respect on my name.
I do apologize on that, because clearly, and you're gonna laugh when I say this. We were doing a segment with Lucy Pryor, and my eyes need to be checked, because in one of the matches I read off, I got the outcome of the match wrong. So unfortunately, that could be my eyes. So I mean, do take no offense, Curly. I might, maybe I was listening to something, and I might have the problem of needing my eyes checked, but it's Hazley Rose, who certainly, again, we're going to see her debut for Bolton Town Wrestling, so I want to make sure we get that right. And Harley Hudson, who I do know very well. I obviously know her very well. And you got to give me the pronunciation on this. Is it
Alfie?
Alfie. Okay, I want to make sure. That's why I asked you first. I don't want to say anything and come across more of a fool than I am already. But triple threat match. I always love these matches. We've got Alfie, Hazley Rose, and Harley Hudson. So set the tables for us and what we can expect here between Alfie, Hazley Rose, and Harley Hudson.
So, Hasley has been working really hard. She's been training as a pro wrestler for 4 years.
Yeah, I've seen her. I've seen her stuff around. I definitely seen her stuff around.
Yeah, she works a lot with Dynamite Lee, and this is her pro wrestling debut. So not just a BTW debut, a pro wrestling debut. And it's very rare that you get to have the honor of having a pro wrestling debut on your show. So we are so proud to have Hasley fighting. And we feel that we have given her the best opening introduction to the wrestling world that we could by putting her against Alfie, who is a phenomenal talent, well known in the northeast of England, and Harley, who is...
I know Harley Hudson.
I mean, she is making waves.
Yep.
She is getting some real traction. She is getting noticed. And you look at almost any card across the northwest of England.
I see her everywhere. I see her in every company.
You know, she's got such a striking look, you know, with the pink and the hair. You know, it is just, she stands out so much. And not just on the posters, but in the ring. You know, this match, Hasley needs to bring her, you know, her absolute best, because going in there against two of the best women in UK scene, she's got her work cut out for her. But she's been training with Dynamite Lee, and I've been watching.
How much of an advantage do you think that is? And Dynamite Lee Dawson is somebody we speak about quite a bit on the show. He's going to be in KOW also. And how much of an advantage is that for a wrestler to be able to train with somebody to the status of a Dynamite Lee Dawson?
So I know firsthand that if you can get in that ring with someone who has a very finely tuned wrestling brain, you can pick up so much in such a short time. You know, I've trained with Danny Hope. I've trained with Sheik El Sham.
I know Sheik El Sham very well.
You know, Philip Michaels. These guys have got such finely tuned wrestling brains that even someone like me can pick up enough to get through a match competently and to put their own little spin on everything. So the fact that I've been watching just how much Hasley's been working on getting ready for this debut with Dynamite, the amount that he'll have been teaching her, it almost gives her, a year or so's of experience in terms of her wrestling brain. Now that being said, she's still going to have her work cut out. I wouldn't like to be the referee in this one. I wouldn't like to be trying to keep an eye on all of this action that's going to be going on between these three. And if you had to push me for a winner, I'd go with Harley.
I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble with this, but something tells me here that I like, for whatever reason, Hazley Rose here to come away with a victory. And from what you told me just now, something tells me here, and I realize this is a debut and this is somebody that's been training, but something tells me here, if it was a one-on-one match against either Alfie or Harley Hudson, I'd say, sure, you might be right. You definitely have a great points here, and you know better than me, right? Who am I to question your judgment? But something tells me here, and you see this all the time in sports, you see this all the time in wrestling, that the stars kind of align. Everything kind of falls into place, and something tells me here, and again, I don't have any inside information. I don't know anything about anything. Clearly, I need my eyes checked on top of that. So clearly, you can clearly tell when I got Hazley's name wrong to begin with. But something tells me here, I just might want to call and go on a limb here as the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportzwire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, that Hazley Rose might just come away here with an upset because it's a triple threat match, and she might just be able to pull it out.
I think it would go down as one of the upsets for the ages if it did happen. As much as I love Hasley's determination and all of the effort that she's putting into her training, you've got to be something else to come into a triple threat against two such strong opponents and get the win. Now, this is wrestling; anything can happen. But I just feel Harley's going to make it.
All right, we'll certainly see here what happens, and obviously, again, we will see a very, very intriguing match here. And I also want to bring it up because we've kind of danced around the subject, and obviously, shout out to all those participants, especially Alfie and Harley Hudson and Hazley Rose. And if any one of them, anybody else on the Bolton Town Wrestling roster would like to come on the show, we always will extend the invite. But the Wrecking Crew, you got to talk to me about Davey Getzky and Chris Stone, because obviously we know them being the first ever LWF and the current tag team champions, and obviously they have certainly made quite an impact here in Bolton Town Wrestling for reasons I may or may not be surprised of. But talk to me about, in your company particularly, what the Wrecking Crews, Davey Getzky and Chris Stone, have done.
So they came in under a shadow. Very definitely.
Why am I not surprised that's the case? Why am I not surprised?
It's not surprising at all, is it? The Wrecking Crew came in at the end of a very hard-fought match between Maverick Matt Williams and the Man Mountain Andrew Jepson, and took advantage of the fact that those guys had just left everything out in the ring, hitting Matt with numerous high-impact moves. Now, they came in with an agenda, and that agenda was that the Northwest wrestling scene should be theirs. They were trying to take over in LWF, and they felt that they should be taking over in BTW. And they demanded a contract. And one of the very first things that I said on the very first show of BTW was that no one gets anything handed to them. Everyone has to earn it in BTW. And for these guys to get a contract, they needed to go through Maverick and Jepson in a fair fight. Now, they did. And as much as I don't like it, that's the contract. And the reason they're in the Rumble, very much like having any kind of bad apple in the barrel, you don't want them turning everything that you've got bad. So you turn them on to someone else.
Mm.
So these guys, while we might not like them, we do pay them, and therefore they're going to fight for BTW. So they're going into the Rumble as two men, part of the BTW side of the Rumble. Because if they were against you, you really wouldn't.
Oh, I know very well that you do not want the Wrecking Crew to be against you, and I've seen what they've done in the LWF, and I've seen what Davey Getsky has done to transform himself, and I've seen what Chris Stone has done to transform himself, and certainly very, very intrigued to see what they do in the Rumble. And I'm curious for those that may or may not be coming out next Friday for the Gold Rush in terms of the Rumble. Who else are the participants here in this match? I'd be curious for those who may or may not have decided to buy a ticket and want more information on who else is going to be in the Rumble and what they can expect.
Okay, so having heard Sportswire in the past, I know that we've got a couple of guys that you know. So James Reed.
Oh, I'm glad that you brought James Reed up because I was waiting for this. That's why I asked you that question, because I know James Reed very, very well, and I think that James Reed might just be one of the most stiffest and toughest opponents anybody can be in the ring with. I mean, certainly James Reed may not be the most talkative, but certainly when it comes to putting your words to your body and just putting yourself out there, I mean, James Reed might be one of the toughest people and one of the favorites here in this Rumble.
Absolutely. I mean, in all of his mannerisms, in the way that he moves around the ring, in his, as you said, non-talkative. I kind of get very much a Steve Blackman feel from James Reed. He's all business. He's in there for one reason and one reason only, and that's to inflict pain. Now, I've been up close and personal with James in a wrestling ring before. Fortunately, not as an opponent. I was a referee in one of his matches.
I was going to say, if you were in the ring with James Reed, I would have heard about that.
Oh, yes. But no, I was fortunate enough to be a referee.
Okay.
It's even scarier when you're that close to him, doing what he does so well in the wrestling ring. So we've got James Reed, we've got Axel Strife, and he is the biggest Axel Strife fan in the world. Is Axel Strife. But he came into BTW last month. He answered Maverick's challenge. He made his presence known. I mean, you can hardly not hear him whenever he's around.
That's like right now. I have people in the background speaking, and I've asked them like 4 times, "Can you please lower it?" So I mean, I certainly can sympathize with that. So I certainly can understand that.
Now, I've had chance to get to know Axel over the last couple of months, and I'm really proud that he's fighting for the BTW brand. You know, he is a bit of a loner. He does things for himself, but we've managed to come to an agreement, if only for this match, that he will cooperate and be there for the BTW. Finishing off the BTW side of the Rumble, we've got Nishiki. Now, this gentleman comes as a complete unknown to me, I'll be honest with you. He has been booked purely off recommendations from some of the other guys.
Okay.
I've never seen him, but I am so excited to see him. What I've been told from the other guys, he is, while he's an unknown entity to me, it's going to be really, really fun to find out about him. And hopefully the BTW crowd, who this is his debut, so they're going to find out about him just as much as I'm going to find out about him. And I'm really excited for that. So I really hope they are. Now, go on.
No, I was going to say, and I could certainly see why you'd be excited about him. That was just my point.
Yeah, absolutely. So the GT Ministries side of the Rumble, we've got the Man Mountain, Andrew Jepson.
Very well. Sure.
He is a staple of the other side of the Pennines. And yeah, a phenomenal talent, a hard-hitting talent. And And having watched him in a couple of matches, against Maverick and with Maverick, against the Wrecking Crew, he's going to be difficult to get out of the Rumble. He really is going to be difficult to get out of a Rumble. If he comes into that Rumble as a late entry, he could just win it from there without breaking a sweat, probably, which means he'd have an awful lot to take into that main event. Alongside Andrew Jepson, we have Joel Cobra of the Modern Day Mafia, someone who I have seen quite a bit of recently. I don't think that there's too many people out there other than Andrew Jepson who are as tall as Joel Cobra. And that makes him a big target in the Rumble. We've seen it in many Rumbles in the past across many companies that the big guys fare really well. They really work hard to get the guys out. So he's gonna be difficult to get out of there. Now, with a Rumble, it's meant to be every man for themselves. As WWE throw down our throats every 20 seconds in the Royal Rumble. And we've got the Wrecking Crew in there. We've also got Joel Cobra's running buddy in the Modern Day Mafia. We have Dave Douglas. So you've got two very, very formidable tag teams. I don't know how much you know about the Modern Day Mafia.
We know a little bit about them from obviously covering GT Ministries. We know them very well.
Personally, I love the Modern Day Mafia. They've got a little bit of history with Jack Johnson over in BT.
I know. That's why I was waiting for that catch. That's why I kind of knew it. I knew it.
I quite like them. But when it comes to the Rumble, it's BTW all the way. So while I like them, I am not rooting for them in the Rumble. They themselves over in GT Ministries have had their run-ins over the last few events with MC2 and Gung Ho Muttley. Now, these guys, other than seeing them getting battered by Modern Day Mafia a few times, I've not really seen too much of them. But from my discussions with Joel Cobra, they are a pain in the backside. They are just scrappy. They very dogged, determined guys who might not be the biggest guys in this Rumble, but if they can get some cohesion, if they can make sure that they stay on the same page, they could work together and just pick people off. If they, if the draw comes out right, if they get in there early on together, get the numbers advantage, they could just be picking people off left, right, and center.
Yeah, again, you've got, such an intriguing battle royal here, Rumble, whatever you want to call it. Certainly the Rumble here, 10-man Rumble. And again, you've got, the Wrecking Crew, they speak for themselves. Obviously, Modern Day Mafia speaks for themselves. And we got some great participants here. And again, cannot stress this enough. These are reasons why you also want to follow Bolton Town Wrestling. Cannot stress this enough. Instagram, Bolton Wrestling, Bolton Town Wrestling. Twitter, it's Bolton Wrestling. Also Facebook at Bolton Town Wrestling. And YouTube page, we have a Bolton Town Wrestling YouTube page as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, where we can see some content and such and everything else. Or do we have a Bolton Town Wrestling page?
I don't think we've launched that just yet.
Okay.
It's in progress.
And Power.tv, we can also see you guys as well for those who have Power.tv. I know that a lot of companies have some content up there. Maybe we can see some of that as well on Power.tv.
I don't think we are yet.
Okay.
We've been going less than a year. We definitely got content on DVDs from the inaugural show that people can buy when they come down to Gold Rush on the 22nd of April. But I know that our AV guy, who is absolutely phenomenal, he does all of our graphics.
Yeah, I don't know how all you companies, you guys will have like $1 million graphic companies. It's phenomenal. All you guys, it's unbelievable.
I bet he wishes he was paid $1 million.
Well, I'm aware of what they get paid at the wrestling world. I'm aware.
He does an absolutely phenomenal job. I mean, you can see our wrong side of me.
Yep, I see it.
Our Love at First Fight graphic.
Yep.
He's done some absolutely phenomenal work. But yeah, so he's beavering away in the background, editing and getting our stuff together. We've got one DVD that's ready. There'll soon be more, and I'm sure that streaming will come soon.
Oh, it all comes. It all is like
It all
gravy.
comes.
It all comes in.
Obviously,
So.
as a company, we need baby steps. We need to, concentrate on the products, make sure that we're giving the fans the best night entertainment that we can, and getting in some of the best talent that we can. And I think we've done it with the Gold Rush.
I think you guys certainly do. The talent that you guys have speaks for itself. And I wanted to ask you this question, actually, because I know obviously we're a newer company compared to some other companies, like, let's say, KOW, which is going on almost 10 years now, believe it or not, or certainly the LWF, that's been a while. I mean, what all led to the formation of Bolton Town Wrestling?
So at the core of Bolton Town Wrestling is a group of guys who all went through white collar wrestling at PCW, which is a charity event where we come in with no experience, we get trained up across 8-10 weeks, and then we put on a show, all for charity. And on the back of that, a couple of the guys carried on training, wanted to kind of do something a bit more, and across COVID, one of the guys decided to buy a wrestling ring. And from there was just some discussions about, well, what could we do? We really enjoyed this. We love being part of wrestling. What can we do? Now, only one of us is actually an active competitor. Still, the rest of us are all kind of in managerial roles or behind the scenes, making sure that everything runs smoothly. Jock, who's our ring announcer, he main evented White Collar Wrestling 5. Myself, I main evented White Collar Wrestling 4. Maverick Matt Williams has done a couple of White Collar Wrestling shows, as well as some of the Academy shows. And we've got Disco Dave, who's our sound guy, and he actually ended up on the PCW Rumble the night after the White Collar Wrestling, because the guys who were on commentary loved what he was doing so much that they decided they'd find a spot for him in the Rumble. As well as James, who's our AV guy and our graphics guy. So we've kind of all come from the same place of relative nobodies in terms of the wrestling world, but with a massive enthusiasm, a massive heart for this business, for what we do, for putting smiles on people's faces, and just getting the opportunity to work with some of these amazing talents, some of whom we've been watching over the years, in getting to have them as our peers, or certainly in my case as people who should respect me, Jack.
Why did I know that was coming? And I walked right into that. But obviously, again, you guys are family friendly. Obviously, family friendly wrestling here. You can definitely get in Bolton. And again, next Friday, Gold Rush. Cannot stress that enough. And Bolton Town Wrestling, Instagram, Bolton Wrestling on Twitter. Also like the Facebook page. But Lucas, I always ask this question to people that I've had on the first time when it comes to professional wrestling. And I almost have to ask it. And what got you into professional wrestling?
Oh, so I've been a fan since I was very, very small. I used to go around to my friend's house because they had Sky and we didn't. So I would go around to watch the WWF shows.
Sure.
We'd spend Saturday afternoons watching WCW Worldwide.
That I can relate to that. I definitely watched a lot of WCW Worldwide. I definitely did.
Yeah. And one of my first memories of live wrestling was I ended up getting to see Dynamite Kid.
Oh wow!
In my hometown of Preston.
Okay.
At a wrestling show. It was one of these American wrestling where they had versions of well-known characters, but alongside that they had actual Dynamite Kid. And as a massive British Bulldogs fan, seeing Davey Boy and Dynamite over the years, getting to see Dynamite up close and personal was absolutely amazing. And so, yeah, it's just grown from there. I mean, going through college, me and my best mate spent quite a lot of our times talking about wrestling and trying to put each other into the transmissions. Just walking along the corridor, and all of a sudden you're getting strangled and trying to be brought down to the ground. So that for me, it's just been a lifelong obsession, and very much getting to live the dream at the moment.
Absolutely, you definitely are living the dream. And listen, I could certainly sympathize with some of those things here, to say the least. And obviously, again, when I think of professional wrestling, and that's what it does, it brings people together of all walks of life and all different things. And listen, you got the opportunity to see the British Bulldogs, and I almost hate to say it in some ways. I almost think about what could have been when it comes to the Dynamite Kid, and even to an extent the British Bulldogs. I mean, that must have been a pretty cool experience, especially at your hometown, to be able to see kind of, I guess, maybe the British Bulldogs, or certainly the Dynamite Kid, maybe before what we all got to see them on the big stage, for sure, to say the least.
Yeah. I think at the time that we saw them, it was probably a couple of months before Dynamite Kid made his debut on WWF. So, it was really exciting.
Oh, I could certainly see that. And certainly, again, they were certainly trendsetters, to say the least. And I think in a lot of ways, they were certainly ahead of their time, and almost like musicians that certainly many people try to emulate years and years later. So certainly their influence is certainly knee-high deep. And obviously, again, we always think about the British Bulldogs. And I also want to ask you this question when it comes to Bolton Town Wrestling. And I know we're a new company, but what are your goals for 2022 with the company?
I think to get as much notice on us as we can. As many eyes on us, from whether it's paying customers or from social media, from podcasts like yourselves. Just to get noticed, get established. We were very fortunate to get Franco Varga over as part of his UK tour.
Yep, saw that. Him and Bentley. Certainly, that was a match for the ages.
Oh, but then completely ruined at the end by Stokes. And we'll come to that in a second.
We are.
But yeah, I think as a company, we've started out very much as a small ACOM, and we want to grow. We want to harbor more relationships like we have with GT Ministries. We're reaching out to other companies. We're looking to get some established stars from our own brand. We've got Maverick Matt, who's a Bolton lad, who is already, making waves and getting onto other brand shows. I think he's up to maybe 15, 16 matches so far across 3 or 4 different companies. He's working really hard and getting himself out there. I think, if we could get to the end of 2022 and come away and say that we put on the best shows that we could put on, each and every show, then I'd be happy with that.
Oh, I think something tells me that we are going to definitely do that. We are going to start with that here, with the Gold Rush upcoming next Friday. Doors open 6 p.m., 7 pounds here. And again, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, listen, if you want to take the family out to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, you're going to spend a lot more money on that than instead of going to the Gold Rush. You're going to see some big, big names, and obviously the likes of Franco Varga. I mean, Franco Varga just wrestled PCO. He's wrestled the likes of EC3. He holds a victory over Carlito. He's been in the ring with Chris Masters. I mean, there's a long list of opponents that Franco Varga has been in the ring with. We had on Franco Varga here, and we'll get to stocks in a minute, but I also have to bring up somebody that is a friend of the show, and I had on here a little while ago, I think originally before your last event, I want to say, and that was Helena Razor. And Helena Razor and Jack Roberts were in the ring together. I mean, that's a certainly interesting dynamic. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I had heard that Helena Razor and Jack Roberts, there's some type of back and forth there I had heard on one of the podcasts you did. So I almost have to bring up Helena Razor here because I have a feeling she'll listen to this because I've interviewed her, and certainly there's a tie-in there because Wildfire Nate Reese is actually the godfather to Helena Razor's son, I believe it is. So certainly you got to fill us in on what's going on here with Helena Razor and Bolton Town Wrestling.
So they've got a bit of a storied past. A few shows ago, Helena's opponent wasn't available because she had COVID. And so we rallied and tried to get her what we thought was a worthy opponent. And that was Jack Roberts. We know that they've got a storied past in LWF.
Oh, we know Jack Roberts had wrestled Reynaldo for the championship there. No, Jack Roberts very well, and he wrestled our own Stephen Cross. I know him very well, Jack Roberts.
Yeah, and we know that Shining Wizard and Synergy have had their run-ins at LWF in the past. So we figured, Helena versus Jack should be good. Just 1 second, Tom.
Take your time, trust me.
Okay, go on, back off the bed. Pass. You got it? Go on, off the bed, mate.
Sorry, don't worry, Camp. We got about another 15 or 20 minutes, so go ahead, continue.
That's my mini GM.
Well, listen, we know it's getting close to that time, so trust me. We don't have much longer. Go ahead.
It's okay. So Helena beat Jack. In my humble opinion, she humiliated Jack in that match.
I kind of am inclined to agree because I've spoke about Jack Roberts winning the LWF World Championship, so I'm inclined to agree with you on that.
I think he came in far too confident. Obviously he had time to prepare. Helena got it dropped on her, but I think he overlooked just how good an opponent Helena can be. So she has that victory over Jack. At our last event at Love at First Fight, again, cards subject to change. Her opponent couldn't make the event. So we, as BTW, we like to make sure that the fans get what they want, and they wanted to see Helena in some capacity. So we got Jock to give her an interview, and during that interview, Jack Roberts stormed past me in Gorilla, through the curtains, up to the ring, and very rudely interrupted Helena's interview. And I think that when Jack was in the ring with Helena, I think that some of this anger, and they say it's a very fine line between love and hate, I think some of his anger towards Helena was starting to work towards affection. And he basically propositioned her for a date. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, Helena's had it up to here with Jack.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of chuckling here, to say the least.
So she came and apologized to me afterwards because, she has no authority in BTW to make any kind of stipulations or any kind of matches. But she threw in the stipulation that, hey, Jack, you want to get a date with me? Beat me in a match. However, if she beats him, he has to leave BTW. He has to be gone. He has to leave her alone. And I fully support that stipulation.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, certainly this is a storyline that something tells me we're going to be hearing about quite a bit here in Bolton Town Wrestling. Again, Jack Roberts, I mean, certainly, and Helena Razor, I mean, there's certainly a lot to be determined here. And I want to go back to it before we get closing thoughts and a few other things with you in stocks and obviously in Bentley. Again, I know we touched upon the match, but I mean, again, Stocks is somebody that something tells me that he's going to be in the thick of things here in Bolton Town Wrestling. So, I mean, talk to me about what we can expect with him in the future of Bolton Town Wrestling. I know you definitely have a few thoughts further on him.
Okay, so I mean, his immediate future is that he needs to get through Bentley.
Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that.
So on our very first show, they worked as a tag team. They were billed against Max Reaction. And I'll be really honest with you. I loved what I was seeing. If they could have got some cohesion, if they could have got on the same page, those guys could be one of the best tag teams in the country.
No question.
But there's too much ego. There's too much ego, and the personalities clashed far too much. And when the match was over, they were butting heads. They were blaming each other. And that spilled over. We've had, Bentley getting involved in Stocks matches. We've had Stocks getting involved in Bentley's matches. When Gareth Angel put the title on the line, it was because they were sticking their noses into each other's business that they both ended up going for the GT Ministries title, which I don't think they deserved. But if Gareth wanted to make that match, I was happy to support that. At the end of the day, for me, it's all about the money when it comes to GT Ministries being in Bolton Wrestling. You know, getting an extra title match out of him didn't cost me any more money. Bentley and Stocks wanted to fight. Let him do it.
Garrett's a fighting champion, as you pointed out. I didn't even realize he had that many 9 title defenses as champion, and obviously one of them was in your company. I mean, 9 title defenses. I mean, wow. I mean, I didn't realize he had that many defenses.
Yeah, he is. He is very definitely a fighting champion. So, you know, Bentley had the opportunity of a lifetime. You said a few minutes ago, you know, facing Franco Varga at Love at First Fight, and Stocks ruined it. He decided he was going to come out onto commentary. He barged past me in the back, and they're screaming at him. I'm pretty sure the crowd could hear me screaming at him that he couldn't go out there on commentary. He did it anyway. You know, turfed Jimmy out of his seat, stole his headset, and at the end of the match, stormed the ring. Ruined the finish. Ruined the big finish to my match with my overseas star. And I'd had enough at that point. I had absolutely had enough of these two just picking at each other. So when I could see that Stocks had been busted open in the fracas that happened at the end of the match, how about this? No holds barred match. Settle the differences when there's only going to be a clear winner.
Ooh!
But the winner gets a title shot in the future. So not only do they get the chance to get their hands on each other, to hurt each other, to maim each other, to destroy each other, one of them's going to walk away with a chance, possibly even to go against a man with 2 belts.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. The possibilities on Sportswire Radio. That could be in Bolton Town Wrestling. I mean, this has just floored me that we could hear this possibility. I mean, Bentley and Stocks very well. Listen, we heard a lot about you and Jack Johnson, but with all due respect, Bentley and Stocks could very well be that feud in Bolton Town Wrestling that something tells me is going to carry over into some really, really big things here in 2022. And again, I cannot stress this enough. This is why you need to follow Bolton Town Wrestling on Twitter, Bolton Wrestling, Instagram, Bolton Town Wrestling.
I mean, as general manager, I really hope this is the end of it. You know, I hope they can draw a line in the sand and move on to other good stuff, because they're both phenomenal talents. They both have the UK scene in the palm of their hands. But they can't get past this rivalry, this anger towards each other. And they really need to. So I'm dangling that carrot. I'm dangling that title chance carrot to them and giving them the only match that I could think of that would let them get everything out of their system.
Ladies and gentlemen, we certainly hope to be recapping and speaking a lot about this here over the next several weeks and months here on Sportswire Radio. Add this as another great feud that we're going to be speaking about here, and a lot to dive into here on the station. And these are reasons why Lucas Jackson is certainly doing a lot of great things with Bolton Town Wrestling, even though I know Jack Johnson may not necessarily agree, but think about what this company is doing. We've got other companies putting their championships on the line in Bolton Town Wrestling. We have the GT Ministries champion, Gareth Angel, is going to be in the ring with Rarebit, our Bolton Town Wrestling champion. And then we're going to see the winner of the 10-man Rumble be interjected in that match. We are going to see belts on the line. We are going to see, obviously, a triple threat women's match. We are going to see friends like Eitan Steen against Maverick Matt Williams. We're going to see, obviously, what happens with Helena Razor in here. I mean, we've got Keenan in action with Dynamite Lee Dawson, and obviously, we're going to see what happens with Jack Johnson in the ring there with Alex Boylan. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that's a part of Bolton Town Wrestling, and I'm very, very excited about it here. And before next Friday, Lucas, and of course, we want to continue to speak about Bolton Town Wrestling here in the future. We want to have you back here after the card to recap it and get some further thoughts on where the dust settles here with Gold Rush. But I want to ask you this question and give me your thoughts on it on what can we expect if you're a fan that's coming Friday, and then if you're somebody next Friday that's on the fence about coming but might just need one more push to come out and go to Bolton and go to the Gold Rush and see all these great matches. So before we get closing thoughts here, Lucas, give me your thoughts for anybody that's going to come next Friday, and for those that are on the fence, what you might want to tell them in order to get them over the finish line here and show up next Friday.
Okay, so we've got 7 phenomenal matches. We've got 2 titles on the line. We've got a 10-man rumble. We've got a female triple threat. We've got some really bad blood feuds. And we've got local homegrown talent making debuts and continuing their rise across the UK scene. And we've got Rafflemania without Jack Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, think you heard it here first. I mean, Bolton Town Wrestling. I know. I wish I was in Bolton, Lucas. I wish if there's a way to teleport me to Bolton, I'd love to be there. In fact, I even said to Franco Varga when he came on the show here, I said, do you have room maybe for one more ticket on the plane so I could go out there and travel? Because I was kind of envious of Franco Varga because he was at so many companies that obviously we have our friends of the show with and have gotten the opportunity to speak with and such. So obviously very, very envious of Franco Varga because, of course, he is from the tri-state area. So definitely we'll make it happen there one day. But Lucas, I know you're a busy man. You have a lot going on. You have general manager decisions to make. You've got matches. You've got wrestlers to deal with here. A lot going on here on your plate. So I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug? Anything else that we need to plug you when it comes to Bolton Town Wrestling? Again, I can't thank you enough for granting us this opportunity to speak about your company and all the great things that you were doing here. So I turn it over to you, my friend, and I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts here? Anything else you want to plug? And the floor is yours, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. So you can follow myself at Lucas_Jackson_wrestling on Instagram.
I'm doing that right now because I don't think I have you followed. So now I need to do that. That's why I asked.
There. You'll see some of the, especially if you go back and look at comments and some of the links videos, you'll see a bit more of what went on with Jack Johnson, and obviously videos from the hospital. You know.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now, and I'm also looking at some of the belts you got here right now. I mean, I'm looking at Chris Masters here. Also, I see a picture of you here with. I see.
Yeah, so some of that's from my wrestling history, but yeah, obviously you've been very kind and plugged our socials quite a few times.
That's a no-brainer. Listen, that's
obviously. So if you're on the fence about coming, you know, nice venue, cheap beer, superb wrestling, man in a crazy suit. You know,
I wasn't gonna say. I was trying to think. I don't know if you know this or not, but who you remind me a little bit of. You remember Penn and Teller?
Yep.
Are you trying to pull off that look? Is that what
It's a little Jimmy Hart.
I see a little bit of the Jimmy Hart, but you're a lot bigger than Jimmy Hart. I mean,
Well, yeah. It's a little Jimmy Hart. It's a little Penn and Teller. It's slight homage to Tom McManus.
I know Tom McManus. I've had Tom. I knew there was a catch with Tom. I've had Tom McManus on. Yep.
I've got an attempt at the mustache going on. And
yeah, I noticed that.
We've had some suit conversations in the past. Yeah, look, if you can't be memorable in this business, then you shouldn't be around it. You don't go to a wrestling show to, well, who was that guy?
Yeah.
But who's going to forget this?
That's what I knew this was. Listen, when you wanted to come on, I had a feeling this was going to be good because you were like, I don't know. I'm like, no, trust me, this will be good. And you definitely delivered. That's why I want to have you back on after the Gold Rush, and I want to recap this and speak about, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot here to talk about. And again, these are reasons why you also want to follow Lucas Jackson at lucas.jackson.wrestling.
Lucas_Jackson_wrestling.
Lucas_Jackson_wrestling. So make sure everybody, if you're on Instagram, give him a follow like I just did and see a lot more about Bolton Town Wrestling. And I can't thank everybody enough here for tuning in. So I want to thank everybody that has watched us here tonight. Also on Northeast Streaming Sports Channel on Roku. I want to thank Lyndon McMcGrath for that opportunity to put us out there on their station. I also want to thank everybody that is tuned in on the flagship for sportnarium.com/player. You'll get some new content there shortly in a few minutes when we go off the air. And I also want to thank everybody that is tuned into us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and everywhere else. And of course, the flagship again, sportnarium.com/player. We'll be back, I believe, Thursday night. If not, we'll be back Friday night with a full recap of wrestling news. We'll be back with ALP from KOW. We'll also have the Asset Stephen Cross, Wildfire Nate Reese, the Scenario Nathan Gunn. More of that LWF talk here, to say the least. So I'm excited about all of that. And again, I'm excited most importantly about Bolton Town Wrestling, which you need to follow again on Instagram, Bolton Town Wrestling, Lucas_Jackson_wrestling. Also, Twitter, Bolton Wrestling. Also, please like their Facebook page. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. I want to thank also Lucy Simons for coming off to kick things off for us here and talking all things related to KOW and Odyssey, and most importantly, Lucas Jackson for the first of many more appearances here on Sportswire Radio. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. We will be back here later this week. And if you're on sportnarium.com/player, stay tuned. You'll get new content. I think Neil Villapiano is coming back for a Devil's State of Mind show. So we'll see how devilish it is when it comes to Neil Villapiano. But in the meantime, thank you, Lucas Jackson. I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Good night, everyone. Okay, so